Aloha and welcome to today's episode, Ancient Oblivion, the Plasma Apocalypse. Today we're going to piece together some of our, well, all of our ancient history basically, and it's going to involve plasma theory, right? So we're going to connect science, we're going to connect the electric universe, we're going to connect all the different, many of the different fringe theories that have been coming to light lately. Everything's going to make sense. It makes sense to me, so I'm going to try to build a bridge from my understanding and my perspective and the theories that I'm coming up with to all of the other fringe theories, from mud fossils to mud floods to why there were no toilets during the Dark Ages to strange archaeology, weird archaeology, Gothic styles, spires and domes and plasma and electrified atmosphere, all of it today. So welcome everybody to the live stream and welcome to the live chat. We are live, just in case you're wondering. Good to see everybody in the chat. If you have a question for me, I'll try to keep my eyes on the chat and to answer your questions or to respond to them. Hopefully we don't have any issues. I'm going to start at the beginning. We're going to start with the beginning, okay? We're going to go through history, basically. But the place that I feel is the most appropriate to begin is with cosmology, is with maps. Our world and understanding what our world actually looks like. Our world is shaped in the minds of the population. It's shaped for us, basically. We're told how to see ourselves. We're told how to see the world that we live in. But we get a different shape for the world. And this is not just like a video about flat earth or anything. This is a video about all of it. Hey, hold on. I just got a super chat from Sunshine. Thank you. That was very kind of you. Give me a quick second. I want to make the alerts a little bigger just in case people do, want to put a super chat or whatever. All right, let me test that out. I like doing live streams. Much better than reading scripts and all that stuff. All right, so I just pretended that we have Kevin as a new subscriber. All right, I don't know if that'll work. Hopefully that'll work. Let me test it out again. Let me do a pretend super chat. Okay, sweet. So if you do a super chat, then boom, it'll show up right there. All right, cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, so the maps, cartography, the ancient world. Now, the ancient world was drawn much different. There were phantom islands, phantom countries, and sometimes, of course, Atlantis, right? Just the entire island country of Atlantis that most people dismiss as being, that's fantasy, that's fabrication. Basically, it's a lie. That doesn't exist. That never existed. And you should be wearing a tinfoil hat if you think that things like that are real. If you believe in those old wives' tales, those fairy tales. Well, guess what? There's probably even some truth to that, wearing the tinfoil hat, and I'll explain to you why. Like I said, everything is connected. Now, if you do have a question, just like Sarah Smith just did in the chat, she typed in @JayDreamerZ, and it actually got my attention because it highlights here on my side. Now, this is an example. We're going to take a look at some examples of old world maps. Specifically, we're going to take a look at, holy cow, thank you. Hold on, I'll get right to that. We're going to look at this island right here, okay? And this is all from my perspective, so I'm going to say some things as a matter of fact, but just keep in mind they're my perspective and my research. This is the Garden of Eden. Now, I want to say thank you too to Sunshine, who just donated $100 in the super chat. That's so much money. That fills my gas tank 2 times, which is a lot these days because gas is expensive. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. Now, let's take a look at these maps right here. We're going to zoom in, okay? This circular island, you see this? Cross-sectioned by 4 rivers. We're starting at the beginning. This is the book of Genesis. This is the Garden of Eden. There is the 4 rivers of paradise right here. Okay, you can see this is the Euphrates because it's split into 7 heads. This one, it's written in Latin. I've decoded all of this Latin. And it says this is the fastest of all the rivers. It's the Tiger River or the Tigris River, the fast-moving river. This one over here is equivalent to the ancient Nile. Okay, so the modern day Nile, the modern day place names, rivers, mountains, all of that, many of them, maybe most of them, have been renamed in honor of this ancient land. This is the original land. So we've got the Euphrates, the Tigris, the Nile. They go by many different names too, the Pishon, the Gihon, etc., right? In the middle, we have a magnificent, lofty, towering mountain, a black rock. Right? Which is exactly why your modern day company is called BlackRock and why they own everything. Okay. Those people that own that company are related to survivors who left this area and passed on secret information or just the truth to their family members. And they ingrained it within them to remember these things, specifically the apocalypse and the nature of our world, how all of this is actually created. Okay. But if we take a look at these ancient maps, we'll find that at the middle, at the North Pole, we have paradise. We have Hyperborea. 4 little island continents that create a circular continent with the mountain right there in the middle. Okay, let's check out a couple of more here. This is the Urbano Monte map, the largest map that I've ever found that was made during the Dark Ages. And right there in the middle, it's covered by a star. That's because this is a top-down view, so they put portions of the dome on here. Obviously, they need to make the dome transparent, and there is a dome. I'll get to that. Okay, the firmament. I'm a firm believer in the firmament. There's a G right at the middle of it. You can see right here. You see that? See how there's a G right there? That indicates this is a place you should go to. The G was a foot in the ancient languages. It was a picture of a foot. Right? And this is why the Freemasons, they also use the letter G. This is the place of God. This is the throne of God. This is the footstool of quote-unquote God, or one of the mighty ones of ancient times. And I'm going to tell you my perspective on who those are. Now, keep in mind, take it with a grain of salt. When I talk about God, I'm talking about there's different perspectives on the entity known as God. My own personal one is that God is omnipresent everywhere. So sometimes I'm talking about what others saw as a local God, or the God of this earth, the God of the world, the God of the sky. And then there is the omnipresent God that's everywhere, in our world, outside of our world, under our world, everywhere. Okay. I'm not really referring to that God. Okay. So that's my version of God. Now you can see that this hidden land made it onto so many of these medieval maps, going from the Dark Ages all the way up to about the 1700s-ish, right around there. They started taking this map, this land, off of the maps. You guys might recall that we did a video describing and showing you the land of Jesus that was shown on ancient maps many different times. They had what they called the land of Jesus. It was another terra incognita, right? Cog references thought, right? So incognita means hidden from your mind or hidden thoughts. Terra just means land, which is one of the original names and descriptions of the earth, right? Terra. Now, here's some other things. There's going to be some other pictures in here too, and you'll see these, but I want you to pay attention to pictures like this, these old pictures. Sometimes they're alchemical drawings. Sometimes they're drawings from the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. The older, the better, in my opinion. Okay, now you see up here what looks like it might be the sun. It is not the sun. This is something else entirely. And the luminaries we see are created by the firmament, through the firmament. I'll show you how that works and how it's done here in a minute. You can see that there is a version of the name of God, or Yahweh, the tetragrammaton up here at the top. And take notice, it's only a dome. This up here is a dome shape. I'm showing you parts of our world. I incorporate the dome and the firmament as a part of this world. We'll come back to this apex dome here in a minute. Now, here's another one. This is an atlas of the world. Down here in the corner, you can see they put the Garden of Eden. They put Hyperborea. They put the Hesperides, or the Western Isles. West was down. Okay, I can't stress that enough. East was up. It was known as Orient and Occident. Okay, and those words literally mean down and up. Those were the ancient directions. Today we're all mixed up because they want to hide the hollow earth from you. They want to hide the dome from you. And there's good reason that they believe they have good reason for doing that. All right, here it is again on another ancient map of the world. You can see right smack in the middle the four rivers that cross-section the Garden of Eden. Now keep in mind, along with these main four, there are other little phantom islands around here that represent the true ancient Greece and the true, other islands and stuff too, or countries, modern countries that we've named that after. Here it is again on this one. Now, sometimes they'll draw in different ways, okay? And in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, the movie The Lord of the Rings and the book and all of that, Tolkien, pretty much everybody that discusses his works from The Lord of the Rings, we can all make the connection that he's talking about reality. He's just cartoonified it. He's made it fantasy. But he's taken the absolute truths of our actual history, from giants to elves, to magic, wizards, all of that, but including cosmology. In that book, in that series, going all the way back to the creation book called the Silmarillion, he says the earth was flat. And then there came a time where there was this great shifting of the world, which I believe was a shifting of perspectives. Okay, as we went through these electromagnetic shifts, right? We shift from left brain to right brain and stuff too. And if it affects the direction with which we write, if we write from right to left or from left to right, because our left hand is connected to the right side of the brain and vice versa, right? But he talked about how the world shifted and it became a globe, or it became a ball. It didn't really, actually. It's just perspective, okay? Now here it is again on these maps, as you can see. Let's see, there's on one side over here, and on the other side, we have it again up here at the top, right? This one says Island of Pygmies. The Pygmies were the small people. They're dwarves. They're quite actually dwarves, like you see in The Lord of the Rings. Sometimes they're called Skraelingers, and they go by other names as well. They're just the little people, okay? There were giants, there were little people, and then sometimes they'll put it up here on the map. I'll zoom back out, and you can see, depending on how they draw the map, right? This says Terra Incognita. Pay special attention to this word, septentrio. We're going to come to that in a bit. I'll explain to you exactly what the septentrio is. Here's an ancient Asian map of the world that features the island at the top of the world up here on the sides. Here's another one. This one's called Typus Orbis Terrarum. And you can see up there at the top, they have the Garden of Eden, Hyperborea. I just call it by the popular names. It's Atlantis, okay? It's all of these. Here it is again at the top of this map. This one's a bit more modern, but they still include it up here at the very top. Check this out. Now, it says, man, it's hard to really zoom in all the way to get really good look at it, but it says Terre, that's earth or land. Here you can see the mountain range that encircles the Garden of Eden, acting as the walls. These are the walls of Eden. It's not just a mountain range that you could just, hike over or whatever. These are vertical cliffs that surround the entire island, making it very difficult to get through. Terra Polaris Pars. Pars as in a part of the land. Here it is again at the top, just like we saw before. Now, this is all, we're just starting with a foundation, okay, which is actually the earth as a foundation where we live. Here it is at the top again. And this is the beginning. This is the place of emergence, according to many Native American tales and, myths and legends and religions across the world. If you read the Bible, take note of how many times things happen in the north or to the north, right? Here it is again up there at the top. Here's the first globe ever made. Guess what they put on the first globe ever made? Even when they were changing the map, and even when they were messing with cosmology, they made sure to include this region, There's a hole in the top. It could be twofold because, you know, there's actually a hole up there at the top of the world, which is an entrance down into the inner earth. And that is within Mount Meru, which I'll come to in a bit, okay? But here you can see, these are the 4 islands. Sometimes you can see they're actually connected to the larger continents. And that has a lot to do with the flooding. As the flood waters grew, right, then parts of the different land masses started to sink. They started to go down underneath the waters. And so we were cut off. The actual land was cut off. We were cut off from the Garden of Eden. Now, we're going to switch focus and we're going to go from the land at the North Pole to the dome above the North Pole. So some people might subscribe to a firmament, the idea of a bowl or a dome acting as a physical barrier, keeping our world pressurized. I do. I don't believe in quote-unquote gravity. I think that's just the opposite of buoyancy, okay? Nor do I believe in some magical force that can hold back 4.5 or 5, trillion megatons of atmosphere or whatever it is, and yet let little helium balloons fly freely and the clouds just float in the air instead of being sucked to the ground and we all walk in a fog, which will happen. We'll come back to the fog too, if I can remember. But as we can see here, we've got these 2 pillars, right? The guys on top of the pillars, this is all cartoonification, but pay attention because actually there's a mountain right here behind me. You can't see it, but there's another one in the middle and there's one off to the side. 3 major mountains. That'll make sense in a minute as well. But above this central mountain, which represents Mount Meru, that holy mountain, that sacred mountain, that magic mountain at the center of the world, directly above that is what I call the apex dome, which is the apex, the top center of the firmament, which in the ancient world was lit up. People could see this. This was the North Star. As a matter of fact, this was the only star as a physical, actual object, how it's presented to us. All the other stars are just lights. They're just luminaries. I got another donation from Zella Morales. Love your streams. Thank you. Well, thank you too very much. That was very kind of you. $10. Thank you. So this is the apex dome. This is another portion of our world. Now we're starting to get a better picture of what our world looks like, if it indeed looks like this, right? So let's take a look at some of these other examples here. We've got Mercator's map of the Arctic. There it is right there in the middle. That's one of my favorite depictions of the land at the North Pole. Here is a portrait of Mercator holding a globe, and at the top of that globe is the holy mountain with a little circle in the middle of it, which indicates a volcano. Okay, there's a hole in it. There's a circle in it, right? And then the 4 lands right there. There's also another one over here that he's actually pointing to with his little chopsticks here. It says Polus Magnetis. So there are different poles. I'll explain those poles and how they work with one another. This one's called Region Hyperborea, the region of Hyperborea. Like I said, this central land goes by many different names. 90 degrees north, that's the split mountain. They even make it a split mountain. This is Wolf Mountain. It's portrayed and personified as the head of a wolf that's howling up at the apex dome, which casts these luminaries into our sky, including the moon, the sun, the stars, stuff like that. But as you can see, it's split right there in the middle. That's because it's a plasma volcano. There's not a volcano that spews out lava and stuff. It spews out light. It spews out gases that are ionized and become a pillar. Beams of plasma that shoot straight up from that particular mountain. Here it is again at the top, up here, boom. And let's see, over here, what do we got over here? This is a map showing Tartaria. If I remember, I'll come back to Tartaria. You guys will have to remind me to bring up Tartaria a little towards the end, because Tartaria comes in later. But at the very top of this one, you can see that it says septentrio, right? So we're going to explain all these words and stuff. The septentrio. Sept is easy to figure out. It's the root of September. The original 7th month. It means 7. Here it is again here. Here it is again here. Here's another globe where they featured the 4 lands at the very top of the world. The Garden of Eden in the Arctic Ocean, or the septentrio, or the septentrionalis, or septentrium. Sometimes it's described in different ways. This is called the North Pole because there's actually physically a pole. that comes up out of this area. It's not just the invisible magnetic, you know, polarity area or whatever. Even if it was magnetism, there's no pole, okay? The magnetism would act, it would arch inwards. It wouldn't even create a pole. It would create like the McDonald's arches or an M or something. There is a pole, a light, a pillar, a beam, a column that shoots up and out of the center of the world. That's called axis mundi. The axis, the axle, the center place that everything revolves around. Here's the top-down view of the exact same globe. Right? Now you have to imagine this pole that it looks like it's shooting off to the side, but it's not. It's actually shooting straight up. Okay, they're just giving you a different perspective. These are sprites. I'm going to come back to this. This picture is a little out of place, but remember it. Okay, this is plasma in the sky happening now around the world. Many people, thousands of people are starting to take pictures of these. Keep that in mind. I'm going to come back to the sprites. Here it is again on another ancient Chinese map at the very top. And another thing of interest on this map, by the way, is Antarctica had animals. Tropical animals. Okay? There's many different maps that show Antarctica without ice. Giraffes, rhinos, crocodiles, hyenas. Okay? There's a freaking unicorn right there. Don't dismiss this. Don't belittle it. Don't minimize it and say, oh, well, that's because they were just dumb. The further back in time we went, we were dumber and we were all shorter and we didn't live very long. They're lying. Okay, we go through periods, we go through cycles where those types of things do happen. We're in the cycle right now where we're small in stature. We have short lifespans. We're full of toxins and stuff, okay? But when we go back through those cycles, back in time, people were taller, they were healthier, they were more intelligent, they had better access to the truths of our world. Here it is again at the very top of this map over here, as you can see. There's the four lands of paradise at the top. Here's another depiction of the world that has Antarctica as a ring of ice going around it. They don't always show the dome because they would have to make it sort of transparent. You know what I mean? They're just showing you the land. The dome is maybe even more important in understanding our cosmology than the land is, especially if you want to figure out the luminaries, how they work, how they're created. Those things in the sky are created by the sky. The shape of the land has no bearing on the movement of the luminaries, how big they are, what they look like, you know, when they go into flux and they act weird and stuff like that. This is another ancient concept or cosmology of our world, what the ancient people thought of our world, right? This is the Norse cosmology. This central tree is called Yggdrasil. All right, this is the trunk. This is underneath our world. This is a hollowed out section. This is a cave. The roots of Yggdrasil are caves, okay, basically. And there's three main caves. One that goes straight up through the middle, and then two that branch out to what I call anode and cathode islands, which act as a battery for our world, which exists at the North Pole, which is why you see this wrapped in all of this ice and stuff, right? The Ouroboros right here, this is an electromagnetic current. Right? This island in the middle is paradise. This is Hyperborea. Okay? This is the mountain. That's Mount Meru or Rupus nigra at the middle. This tree trunk you see shooting up out of it is plasma. That's the beam. That's the collar and the pillar. It's the world tree that shoots up out of this mountain. Right? Now over this island, represented by this snake that's eating its own tail because it's a current. It's an electrical current. There is a plasma sheath. We'll come back to the plasma sheath in a little bit. Here it is again, a map from 1546, Universal at the top, at the North Pole. You can see that they included the mysterious and forgotten land of our origin, the place where we were created, the place of creation, the place of our birth, the place of emergence, according to many Native American legends. Here's another map up there right at the middle of the North Pole. They have the mountain ranges that go around the lands. They have the different rivers that look pretty close to the exact same as all the other depictions of them. And they have the mountain, the holy mountain, the sacred mountain at the middle of the world. That is a towering mountain. I believe it's made of basalt columns or basalt pillars, much like Devil's Tower, except for very black and very dark. Now, the mountain changes color every other cycle. Whenever it's electrified, all that blackness that's created from oxidation burns away, or it's electrified. I forgot how you call it, but when you run an electrical current through things like metals that have rust and stuff like that, it basically can get rid of the rust and it brings back the luster. It brings back the shine to this mountain. It's probably magnetite if I was to throw a rock at it. And magnetite is more of a shiny silvery color. You know, it's still sort of a black, but it's so shiny that it looks white. So this mountain goes back and forth from black to white every other cycle. Here's another map. This one also has it up here. This one's a weird looking apple map. I don't know what that one is. Let's move on. There it is again, Rupus nigra. That means, Rupus is where we get ruby from. It means rock. Nigra means dark and black. Et altissima means high and lofty. Altitude is related to that word, right? Something that's way high up. This lake in the middle is a part of, you know, the Arctic Ocean, I guess you could say, but it's sometimes the water actually is indrawn and it's pulled toward the middle. This is referenced in the book of Genesis, okay? When it says that God pulled all of the seas together and into one place. This is where they were pulled together. That word seas is yam in Hebrew, okay? And in Hebrew, yam can also mean mighty river. A large body of water that is loud. That's actually what it implies. It doesn't just mean a lake, any old ocean or whatever. In the ancient world, it also meant river. They pulled the rivers together at the middle of the world and created this gathering of the seas, or the gathering together, the meeting place of the four rivers. And that's fresh water. Okay, all of this right here, there are no impurities in this water. It's black because the light that goes through it doesn't reflect back. It just keeps on going through the water because there's no impurities to reflect the light back out. So it's black water, dark water, but it's pure water. It's virgin. That's an important one to remember. Virgin water. Here's another one, the ancient Hebrew cosmology of the world. Now notice on the sides, right? The world is electromagnetic. It's basically a giant magnet, okay? A type of giant magnet, I should say, okay? Now, on the sides, we've got these huge mountains, which I believe exist outside of the dome, that we're actually in a crater, that our world is like a bowl, okay? The water levels out within that bowl, but the land goes downwards like that, and then it comes up in different sections with the mountains and stuff like that. We've got the underground sections, the cavernous sections, the columns of the earth and the pillars of the earth, the hollow portions of the earth underneath us. And then, of course, we have the firmament. Sometimes it's drawn as brick. Sometimes it's drawn as stone. It's even called stone by many Native American tribes. But that word means something that was once liquidy that hardened. That's what it implies, like cement, right? But it also, I believe, is a reference to ice. The firmament itself, remember, these are all my theories and research and my perspective on things. The gases rise up so high into the sky where it gets extremely cold. You know, the coldness of space, negative 450 degrees, as they talk about in your science books and at your colleges and stuff. That's cold enough to freeze the gases, right? They skip from the gas phase straight to the solid phase, and then you just run right into ice up there that's made of those gases, right? That are being held in because they're pushed away by a strong magnetic force. There is a dome magnetic force above our world, okay? So there's a dome of energy, which is magnetism and electromagnetism, but mostly magnetism. And then there's a physical product that is created by that dome that conforms to the shape of the invisible magnetic dome, and that is ice, okay? That's why there is waters above. Now, there's waters in the form of ice creating the firmament itself. They don't have the, you know, I mean, they got these stars up here that look like they could be the apex dome. But anyways, there is actual water. There's liquid water too. So right where the dome is made out of water. But the further away from the dome you get, it turns more into liquid, okay? And there's pressure. So if you see this as like a balloon, the pressure goes to the outer edges. The outer edge would be the dome itself and the land itself. In the middle, though, there would be a bunch of buoyancy. Things would float right there in the middle, right? Here's another one, another dome that features, I mean, not a dome, a freaking globe that features the 4 islands at the middle of the world. Here is one of my favorite maps, actually, this because it shows the crater form. It shows you the bowl shape of the world that we live in, and where it rises up around the edges On that two-dimensional version of the ancient Hebrew concept of our cosmology, where it shows you the mountains on the side, you have to envision that in 3 dimensions. It goes all the way around. Those mountains are the walls of the crater that we possibly live in, basically, right? And then, of course, they show you the hole at the middle, right? That would be the hole in the Arctic. This is Mount Meru. So alchemical drawings, they will invert, they will flip, they will change the perspective on different things because it's easier to draw it like that. So they want to show you something from the side so they can show you the sky, but they also want to show you something that goes down into the earth. So they take Mount Meru, the top of it, and they flip it. Instead of making it up and down, they flip it sideways towards you so that you can see down into it. Inside of Mount Meru, in this alchemical drawing, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 banners, 7 flags. Septon, the septentrion is what this is a reference to. Now this goes down inside of the hollows of the earth. This is Mimir's well within Norse cosmology, Norse ancient religions and belief systems. Mimir was the Norse god that lived in the trunk of Yggdrasil, which is what you're looking at right now. This is the well of the earth. This is the wishing well. Let me zoom back out and I'll also show you the 7 beams of light that shoot out of other plasma volcanoes that surround Hyperborea. Here they are up here. You can count them for yourself. The god Hermes, right, is a personification of this right here. How do I know? Because I just break down the name. Har means mountain. Mesh or Miz, like Moses, means drawn out of the water. It means to come up out of the water. The mountain that comes up out of the water. This is exactly what I showed you before, and that's why he holds a beam that has electromagnetic currents going up to it. There's wings at the top of it. That's because that beam of plasma actually just spreads out. I'll show you examples of that, okay? He's holding a key. It's a double-sided key because there is a key that unlocks the earth, or halls that go down into the earth. When the electromagnetics turn off, there is an entrance that goes up into the gate of the heaven, which is right here. Okay, you can leave the world by going up, if you know how and you have the technology and stuff, or by going down into the earth as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cherubs, little heads with wings on them. These are balls of plasma, basically. Also take note, this is not the sun. This is the apex dome. You're looking at it from a view of directly underneath, so it looks like a circle in the sky, and we are taught, our perspective is forced by our academic institutions. So we would, our perception filter is one of academics, and we would go, oh, it's a circle in the sky, so it's a sphere, it's a glob up there in the heavens. No, it's not. It is an inverted dome. It is a bowl that's hanging at the top of the firmament. It's the all-seeing eye looking down on our world. There are 3 circles within that. And those 3 circles are often shown to us as well. I believe these are the deadlights that are shown to us in Stephen King's The It, and other places as well. Pay attention and you'll start seeing those 3 circles, okay? Symbolically, they're shown to you in the news as like 3 comets or 3, things that could destroy the earth or whatever. There's also a dalet, which is a triangle. This means door. The triangle always means door. It has always meant door. It's also called the delta. So our delta force is, the Army and the Navy and all this stuff, or whatever, the military here in the United States. They have a section called Delta Force. The Space Force, pretty much the same exact thing. They want to control this area of our world. They want this off limits to all of you. Okay, they are forcing you away from the dalet or the delta. All right, now let's look more at, I think we're going to get into more of the apex dome. Yes. So these next images are going to show you that apex dome of the firmament. Pay attention to ancient drawings. They will show it to you. You're conditioned to think that it's just a portion of the sun, or it's a portion of a circle, or it's a portion of something. This is the ancient light source in the ancient world that was not terrestrial. There were 2 different main light sources. Terrestrial geoplasmas that erupted up as columns and pillars. And then there was this. This was at the North Pole. This was illuminated. This was a light, a physical part of the firmament that glowed. Okay, this was Kronos or Cronus, or however you want to describe it. Okay, this was also, Cronus is where we get chrono or chronology, which is the god of time. Okay, this is how some people kept track of time, because this was the ancient sun. It didn't move around though, it was stagnant. You could always know where you were by looking at where this was. This was the North Star. Now look inside of it. They're constantly showing you the symbolism. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got 10 guys in here and then 2 on the outside, 12. We got what looks like some kind of plasma spiral. But take note, if this is a portion of the firmament, of the dome itself, they drew these different colors, these different rings to it. You see that? That's because it has a different, it's got these, how do I describe this? It's got levels to it, okay? Like waves, okay? So it's not just as our firmament is not just a simple solid bowl, and that's it, because it has an inverted dome. This has portions of it that come out like a ziggurat, okay? That come down, but they act in waves. So they're showing you this wave pattern, step pattern, right? All right, here it is again. So during the Dark Ages, which are, interestingly enough, portrayed to us as an age of light. Look at the background. Look at the sky in the background. Why did they make it all gold? Oh, because they're trying to say gold. No, don't symbolize everything. Or don't internalize it. Don't project onto it. Take it for what it is. The sky was golden. This was a golden age. This was the time when the sky, the very atmosphere around us, lit up. We didn't need a focal point called the sun to, which is really a nightlight, to come around and light it up every once in a while for us. It was constantly energized. It was constantly lit up. So this guy, the saint, right? This is just personification and cartoonification. He's praying to the dome. He's praying to the apex dome, which has these different sections to it, like I talked about, right? And that's what it is. It's a dome. Here's another alchemical medieval drawing of that same exact dome that is portrayed as having a blue sort of frilly cloud around it, and it leaks out plasma. Okay, when our world opens, that's the literal apocalypse, is the taking the cover away from. Our world is covered. When the cover is taken away, it is the apocalypso. That's where apocalypse comes from. It means away from, the covering, away from. So when the covering of our world, which is the dome and the firmament, opens up, you will see the stars fall in pink lines, which is kind of what this is, and that's a reference to, Stephen King's Under the Dome. This is plasma. This is the head of Medusa, which is why she almost always only has a head. Only in the modern times do they start to add like a body and stuff. Same concept as the dragon. These are dragons, okay? This is the quintessential original dragon, okay? They were worms at first. They weren't dragons with feet and arms and eyebrows and tongues and all that crap. It was just worms in the sky, and they were squiggly. They were snakes. But more specifically, they were seraphim or serap or serpents, basically. And they squiggled down out of the sky. They were flying, fiery serpents. They came down. They grounded themselves to the earth. Some people got zapped by them and whatnot, but the sky opened up. Here it is again. You can see the frilly cloud at the top up here. I'll zoom in for you. A lot of symbolism. These angels and stuff, oftentimes this is, plasma and stuff too. But here's the cloud. It's a dome. It's an inverted dome facing downwards towards us. Here it is again, another alchemical drawing. This is the tree of life, or the arbor vitae. And directly above the tree of life, which is a pillar of plasma that comes up out of Mount Meru, we have the apex dome. This is what creates the stars, okay? The light, there's plasma on the other side of the dome, okay? Our whole world, there's plasma waiting to get in. It is spiraling around that dome above us. That dome protects us. That's a shield that's protecting us from constant electrical activity from above, from the power of the heavens, okay? And that's why they show you the stars in this apex dome. They don't show you the stars in the sky in the background back here, right? They show you where the stars come from. And the light, where the light comes from. This is not the sun or anything like that, okay? The sun is created by this, the moon is created by this, and the stars are created by this. You can see the frilly clouds around it as well. Here it is again, the apex dome. As you can see, it droops down from the firmament itself. It just kind of droops on down. And the shape of it is created by how the magnetic current, right? At first, it would just follow the dome shape because it creates a dome shape. But whenever you break that ice open in the middle, it changes the electromagnetic current and it drops down. So whenever it refreezes again, those gases refreeze, it refreezes in the same exact pattern, the same exact shape. Let's see. Here's another one. You can see this is one of the angels sounding his horn. All these people down here are like passing out. They're starting to black out. They're going unconscious. You can see all over the place down here, right? And what's happening? There is a loud sound that is heard as this star falls from the heavens from this frilly cloud above, which is in the shape of the apex dome up here. Okay, those aren't regular clouds. Here it is again. Here's the apex dome above, hanging down. Around the outside of it, you'll see a blue color. Okay, but on the inside of the apex dome, typically it's actually red. This is your planet of the crossing area, the place where you can cross from this world into the fractal verse beyond us, which is Nibiru, right? Which means the crossing of life. The letter N in Nibiru means life. Ibir, or Ibur, which is the root of Hebrew, means to cross over. Okay, life that crosses over. This is the stargate. This is the portal of the gods up there in the sky, in the heavens, in the sky. Here it is again. So check this one out. Let me zoom in. Some of these are vertical, so I got to zoom in so you can see them. But you can see they have the apex dome right up there at the top with the different sections, the different colors. And they draw you the sun and the moon. They're not showing you an eclipse. Okay, don't let people trick you. This is not an eclipse. Oh, they're coming together. It's going to make an eclipse, and that's why they're showing you this. No, they're showing you where they come from. They're showing you their home, which is a heavenly mountain, a type of what is directly below. Here it is again on ancient coins. You may have seen some of this come up on your YouTube feeds. Different channels have noticed that they're showing you the apocalypse in the coins, right? From a little bit more modern times as well, right? So they show you that same apex dome, the same plasma that comes down out of it, the same frilly clouds, and then sometimes the tetragrammaton right there in the center. Here it is again. This mountain is on fire because it's coming from beneath, okay? Now, there is the electric universe theory, which I love, okay? But I want to contribute to that. The electric universe theory, many of those proponents, they talk about how there are plasma discharges and that they're depicted, but the plasma discharge is coming down at us from above. They're missing the other half of the equation, which is the balance to it, right? Terrestrial geoplasmas that come up from within the Earth whenever there is a depressurization in the hollow Earth. And all those gases rush up through those cracks and crevices. They ionize. And we have fire, or what appears to be fire, plasma that comes up and erupts from these mountains. And you can see sometimes they show you like the hand of God that comes down out of the apex dome. That's the plasma spreading out from above, as it will. Here it is again. Kind of looks like the thing that hangs down in the back of your throat sometimes, right? Just a little uvula, or I forgot what that's called. But anyways, they show you the apex dome time and time and time again all over the place throughout antiquity, but we have been blind to it. And I'm here to reveal it once more, or to re-reveal it. Where did it go? Hold on, let me see. Let me check this one. This might be too big. I'm going to make it smaller. Hold on one second. Let me just go back. Yeah, so let me make it smaller. You can see it better. You see that? Okay, boom. You can see it right there. That's the apex of the firmament right there. All right, here it is again. Another alchemical drawing. I'll just make this one smaller too. I got a lot of symbolism, okay? This is showing you the secret of our world. The secrets, all of them, from every single conspiracy, which are all connected, they go back to the shape of this world. Why? Because the shape of this world will determine the apocalyptic cycles that we go through. Those apocalyptic cycles are hush-hush. Those are the paradise is hush-hush. The Garden of Eden is hush-hush. The opening in the firmament is hush-hush. The inner earth, the hollow earth is hush-hush. They don't want you to talk about it. Why? Because they want to keep access to it. Knowledge is power, and they are keeping that power for themselves. Inversely, we should take some accountability, okay? Because there's not a whole lot of, plethora of truth seekers out there. We just constantly give away knowledge. We don't want it anymore. It's like it's like to most people it seems like it's toxic. Like, oh, that's too much to think about. Oh, let me just pay my taxes and go to work and whatever people do. Watch the Super Bowl. I don't know. All the symbolism, okay? This is symbolic for these elements that I've been sharing with you. All these lights that come down from Hermes, and there's the eye in the sky at the top of the staff. The eye in the sky is always the apex dome. The lights come, sometimes we interpret them as coming down from the sky, but when it's going into a cave like this, it's not. It's coming from the cave. This is why Jesus was born in a cave, as many people know, okay? The light comes up out of the earth. That is a geoplasma. That is not the cosmic plasma that separates and divides itself as it enters down into this world. Here's another example where they put the sun and the moon and the stars in the apex dome surrounded by this frilly blue cloud, right? Take note, the background, the sky is gold during the dark ages, okay? That's because we go through a color spectrum shift. I'll come back to the color spectrum shift at the end of the presentation as well. Golden sky, apex dome, plasma, electricity coming down out of the heavens. Pay attention to how Jesus is standing, okay? Because this is exactly what that beam and that column and that pillar at the center of the world does whenever it gets to the top, as it spreads out. It spreads its arms. Directly above, you can see it's clearly plasma, right? Light from the sun typically goes in a straight line, okay? So those are sun rays. These are not sun rays, these little squigglies. It's not fire, because the sun is a giant fireball or whatever. No, it's not. The sun is not a giant fireball. The sun is a focal point. It is the middle of all the light that is coming together that's passing through the firmament. And here's the apex dome up here at the top. Here it is again. You can see that even ancient artists, they would draw the apex dome just drooping down out of the heavens, right? Why would they put that? You know, anybody that has studied alternative cosmology, we can say that it seems they definitely believe there was a dome over the earth, but we always show it like that, right? We know that the dome shape is almost always portrayed as an arch over the world. So why do we see this inverted arch or bowl shape underneath it, attached to the top of the world with stars in it and whatnot, right? They don't put the stars in the background. They put the stars on the apex dome. Here it is again. These are the frilly clouds. These are different constellations, possibly even animals, beyond the dome and stuff like that come into our world. They're telescopes, right? I was just watching Understanding Conspiracy, and he was mentioning how they're shutting down all of these observatories and they're removing access to the public of places that we have built to specifically watch the heavens, to be sky watchers, to look at the heavens, because the heavens are going to show us the times that we live in. They're going to show us when we should start getting ready, when we should start, preparing ourselves for these apocalypses or these lifting or removing of the firmament. Here it is again, another one, the apex dome, Jesus up there, the frilly blue cloud. Now, if you pay attention to the Humpty Dumpty pictures, you'll notice that Humpty Dumpty also wears this frilly blue, necklace deal. I forgot what it's called, tie or whatever you guys, scarf or whatever, right? Same thing. This is Humpty Dumpty. This right here falls. The sky falls like a giant mountain from the sky. And people will watch this drop as this portion of the sky opens up, okay? That's a little more in depth, but this is the hump that dumps. And then every other cycle, when it's not caught in midair through the electromagnetic effect of the island below it, it smashes and it contributes to the world flooding, and it creates, what do you call it, icebergs and stuff like that. That's the shell of Humpty Dumpty breaking up. And at that location where it breaks up is where all of our future nobility will come from. Right, the survivors that leave the Garden of Eden. There's different tribes. Okay, I'm not saying they're all evil or anything just because it seems like all the nobility of today is pretty much evil. But there's different tribes. Okay, some of them have different perspectives. Keep that in mind, especially when researching Tartaria and stuff like that. Here it is again, apex dome at the top, creating the focal point there in the middle. Apex dome with the frilly clouds around it, with Jesus inside of it, little angels that are coming down out of it, which is electromagnetism, right? Here it is again. Here's this guy who is playing with the stars, which is the apex dome that have the stars in them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 stars. They're reflecting the 7 mountains below that are emitting light. That light from below, not just from Mount Meru, that's the largest light, but there's smaller ones all around the world. Okay, they get smaller and smaller as you go towards the outside. But they illuminate the glass sky. When I say glass, I mean ice, right? It's literally how you say ice in French is glace. Anyways, they illuminate that reflective surface. And so we see reflections of what is below in the sky above, which is how so many cartographers were able to draw parts of the world that they had never even been to, right? So oftentimes when you see these 7 stars over here too, they're actually 7 mountains from below that are shining upwards and reflecting as stars in the apex dome. Here it is again on a coin. Lots of symbolism. The symbolism makes so much sense when you apply this plasma theory, right? You got the apex dome. This is the firmament going up and above the world right there. It is emitting light. This is also why the all-seeing eye is shown as like light coming out of it and stuff. The sword is the beam. The sword is the Excalibur. Break that down. Those 3 words, Excali or Cali and Bur. Break those down and see if it doesn't mean a beam that comes up out of, you know, something, or the middle of the world. This is the sword in the stone. Okay. Now there's a wreath around it because this dense plasma focus that is coming up out of the earth, this geoplasma that's in the form of a column, it's interacting with the fluid of the atmosphere that it's passing through. So it's going to create like an hourglass shape, right? And that in the middle of the hourglass shape, there's like a donut of energy. It's a toroidal field, okay? And that's what is being shown to you right here. Now, sometimes people will see that from the side, and it'll look like a little eye in the middle, right? And sometimes that's actually how they represented Jesus during the Dark Ages, was like it looks like the eye of Sauron. It looks like Vesica Pisces, right? This would be like the center of the Vesica Pisces. Here's another one, the apex dome at the top. There's usually a circle right there in the middle. That's the depressurization point. That's where whenever our world depressurizes and the inner earth depressurizes, right? When that magnetic barrier that keeps that pressure in releases all of it, all of the atmosphere rushes to the apex, rushes to the center point in the sky, and it blows a hole right in the middle, which is why you'll see the pupil of the eye right there in the all-seeing eye. I'm going to come back to the dolmen. This picture is out of place, but when you understand that our atmosphere depressurizes, it changes what we consider normal expectations of how heavy objects are, the density of objects and other things too, which allows people to create and move things and manifest things in completely different ways than we could today. Basically, the impossible becomes possible when you change your environment, okay? Here it is again. This is a lot of alchemical references and drawings and stuff. You got the Freemasons, right? These are the ones that keep this secret, which I freely give to you guys. There's the apex dome at the top, the hand of God coming out of it, holding the compass, which is symbolically also Mount Meru. The stars in the apex dome, the different sections to it, the moon and the sun created by it. More of the dolmen. I'll have to remember to come back to the dolmen. Hopefully I can actually remember that. Here's the hand that comes down out of the apex dome. Now, if you are a member of my website, this is the next section of the Plasma Apocalypse. I think I'm putting it in the Plasma Apocalypse section. The apex dome, that's the next website page that's being added to my website. I'm working on it right now. Sometimes they show you dragons coming out of the apex dome. Remember those 3 circles I told you to pay attention and look out for earlier? Check this out. Here they are. 1, 2, 3. These are the deadlights as portrayed by Stephen King. If you look inside of the mouth of Pennywise, which is all symbolic for our world, okay? Because this is the mouth of Pennywise. It's Kronos, the god that, remember, eats his own children. It's not some human that picks babies up and just has breakfast, okay? It is a sky god that opens its mouth and everything gets sucked into it, right? Because of the depressurization. Archimedes' principle, this is the science behind it, dictates that whenever you have a fluid and you remove a significant portion of that fluid, it will be replaced by an equally significant buoyant force. Now, all that means in layman's terms, and in simple terms, is however much atmosphere escapes and goes through this hole in the firmament will be equal to an increase in buoyancy in our atmosphere. What does that mean for us? You'll float too. That's what that means for you. Let's see. So here it is again, the apex dome. They're showing you all of these. Remember how I showed you those sprites earlier? That's what these are. Okay, so they call them cherubs in the old world. They're covering angels. There's different portions to these, right? But anyways, these are all the little sprites that are in this area. You see a lot of electromagnetics and stuff that happen. Here's the different sections of the apex dome. They really brought this one like all the way down to the earth on this particular picture. But you can also see it's responsible for projecting what we call planets as well. This is how I'm interpreting this. And it's not just this one image. There's like a million. I just want to pick the best ones to be examples for all the other ones. For when you guys come across them, you can understand them better. You can go, oh, I see why they put stars in this weird upside down dome. I see why there's 7 of these and there's 7 planets and it all happens to make sense. The luminaries, the plasma that comes down out of the heavens. We are being protected from that plasma. Why? Because we need to. It's a destructive force, right? It might not purposefully be trying to destroy things or whatever, but that's its nature. This red plasma, which is probably ionized hydrogen, comes down from the other side of the dome, the ice dome, when it blows open, and there's going to be different holes in the apex dome. There's different weak spots, weak points, okay? We see those as craters on the moon when they're projected as the moon, because the moon is a projection of this object up here, okay? Or at least a portion of this object up here. And we see all those craters. There's 10,000 visible craters on the moon that you can see with your eyes or with the binoculars, you know what I mean, with telescopes and stuff, right? 10,000 visible craters on the moon. You know how many stars are visible with the human eye on a clear night? Approximately 10,000. Interesting. 10,000 comes up a lot in my research. Now, on either side of these ancient giant broccoli trees, we've got this Jesus-type figure who is doing what I call the Atlas pose. This is the beam of light that shoots up and it spreads out like an eagle. It spreads out like, you know, the top of a totem pole or whatever, like Atlas does. And you can also see at the very top, it is the apex dome that he's holding on to. I'll come back to the Atlas figure in a bit, but you can see the moon and the sun right up there on the top. Right? Here's Jacob's ladder. If you're familiar with the different biblical passage of, you know, the Old Testament patriarch named Jacob fell asleep, put his head on a rock, which is Mount Meru, had this dream of this ladder that went up to the heavens. This is the heavens right there. Notice the golden background. Notice the particular style of mountains and how they're showing you these jagged mountains. They're giving you clues as to the area of where this is taking place. It's not the Middle East. I'll tell you that. It's the North Pole. There's the apex dome at the top with the different sections to it. And when Jacob had this dream, he also saw or envisioned that there were these angels that were ascending and descending, right? Within Norse cosmology, this is pictured as a squirrel that runs up and down the branches and the trunk of Yggdrasil. It's electromagnetic current that is going up and down. All right. Atlas. Now let's talk about Atlas, okay? So, let me break down the name Atlas so you can understand what it means and it's not just a name. I hate it when things are just a name. Let me take a sip real quick. Hold on. I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff, so I hope you guys are hungry. All right, cool. All right, so Atlas. Atl is the root of Atlas, okay? And Atl, for example, if you look at the feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl or Quetzalcoatl, okay? All of those native tribes, they harken back to Enoch and the ancient, you know, forefathers in the Garden of Eden and stuff too. It's all the same story. Sorry, like the carbonation's getting to me. All right, so anyways, Atl Oz, that is the name of this character. It's not an actual human. It's not a person that walked around. It wasn't an actual giant that had a big club or anything like that. Not to say that there were not giants. There were, okay? Gigantism used to be normal. That's why it wasn't spoken of so much. It was weird and an anomaly for people to be our size. Most of the people, this far back in time, going back to the time of the patriarchs, they were giants. Okay, so they weren't going to write a book about giants because that would just be writing a book about normal life. And they didn't think that that would ever change. So it would be strange for them to let the future little tiny people know about what giants were. Okay, they would write about little people though. Anyways, so Atlas. Okay, Atlas is the sky god. Typically lives in the area of the Garden of the Hesperides, which is at the furthest westernmost point of our world. If our world is a flying, rotating, wobbling, tilting, you know, space glob, there is no westernmost point. West is just infinitely left or right, depending on however you want to look at it, okay? But west was down in the ancient times. Remember that? So the furthest point on Earth you can go before you go down into the Earth. This was the center of the Earth, which is the North Pole, or the northern extreme of the Earth. And this is where this plasma would erupt, and it would open up at the top, and it would spill outward, creating auroras and stuff that looked like arms or wings of a cosmic bird. And it's directly under what people thought was another world at the top. This is why Atlas holds up the world. Let me get a different picture of Atlas up here. All right. So the squatter man, that's why Atlas is like squatting down. It's not because it's so heavy or anything. Okay. And I'll explain this in a minute. But as you can see, here's the apex dome. And this is, you know, just a fresco, a part of the architecture on many ancient buildings and stuff. It's got the constellations up there. It's got the stars on there, just as it should. This is the squatter man, or the stick figure, the beam that is holding its arms up. I'll explain the legs and why they're bowing out in a minute, in a little while, okay? But anyways, Atl Oz, right? Quetzalcoatl means feathered serpent, right? The serpent is the seraphim, or the plasma, basically. All right. Oz, or Az, means strong or strength or mighty. Okay. So this is the strong plasma that holds up the world, which is the sky, which is a portion of the sky, which is the apex dome to the firmament. Okay. Next up. So sometimes Jesus is represented by that light. He is the light of the world, right? Notice the background, the golden color. This is the apex dome. These are the frilly clouds to the apex dome up there. And whenever we go through two different cycles, one cycle is an age of light, right? This is what I believe the Dark Ages were. As an example, remember, it's cyclical. It happens over and over and over again as we go through electromagnetic shifts in this world. So when those lights are erupting, these geoplasma shoot up in these sky pillars straight up into the heavens and then branch out towards the top like trees, right? Giant trees. The next time around, whenever those lights retract and the sky will open up once more, everything in the atmosphere will depressurize and get sucked out towards the hole in the sky, which is where this is. This leftover image is called an afterglow. So the plasma that was once there was a beam of plasma. It was faithful. It was true. It was shooting up into the air, but then it retracted. But it left a glow, an after image of itself in the atmosphere, because that whole area of the atmosphere is still charged where it used to be. And then whenever the sky opens up, that spirit, that afterglow, flies up into the heavens, and it gets sucked up and eaten by Kronos, or goes into the heavens and, you know, promises to come back one day because it's cyclical. Here's another ancient cosmology version of the Earth. I just wanted you to pay special attention to this one, because at the very top, it has some clouds right up here. It actually has clouds in the shape of a dome that faces downward, or a bowl. And then right above that, it says Gate of Heaven. That is the opening, the sky opening. And then, you know, God is on the other side. This is the heaven of the heavens, which to me is, I call that the fractal verse. All right. There's plasma conduits, spirals, that are on the other side of this, which is why they show you like Doctor Who, the Einstein-Rosen bridge. Anybody that leaves this world, you're going to go through a vortex of light, plasma spirals on the other side of this. The spiraling of that light, it's coming down and wrapping around the Earth, right? It's spiraling and it's coming down. That light passes through the ice, or the lens above us, and that's why all of the stars and all of the luminaries, with exception, okay, sometimes it's like a spirograph, but most of them go in a circle and follow one another, right? If we were on a spinning, wobbling ball out there in chaotic space, you would expect all the stars to just be going all kinds of different crazy directions all the time, but they don't. And this is the reason why they don't, is because their source, which is the heavens, the light of that is passing through the ceiling of our world, and it's following suit, because up here, it's all spiraling around just outside of our ceiling of our world. Now, this is also portrayed to us. It's hidden, whether it be purposefully or just subconsciously, on a collective subconscious level across the world. You can't get rid of knowledge, okay? It's there. It's in the Akashic records. It's stored within the ambient energy of the earth. It is a resonant field of energy that runs through all of us. So I see that creativity tunes us into these truths, right? So this is a movie poster for the movie Interstellar, and they're showing you the same things that I just showed you, right? This is the blue beam that comes up out of the earth, right? They're showing you a rocket or whatever, but okay, there's a lot of layers to this. Now, keep in mind, perspective. The beam, when it's close by, right, it's going to spread out as it goes higher up. But the further away it gets, it'll actually shrink again because it's getting farther away, right? That beam holds up the other world above, which they're showing you. This is the Atlas beam. This is Jesus on the cross, etc. Now, the reason that they're taking off right here in this particular spot is because this is the gate of the gods. This is the place where if you want to leave this world behind, this is where you would do it. This is where they're going to land. So this thing could be landing too, right? But this is where the otherworldly fractalverse travelers will come down into this world. They'll just go straight down, right? During the depressurization, they won't fall at terminal velocity or anything. They'll just float right on down. And they'll land right there in Babylon. Ancient Babylon, also called Egypt, also called Jerusalem, also called all these different names and places, because that's where they all are from. The all-seeing eye. That's exactly what that is, okay? It's the apex dome with the light that comes out of it. This is one of Nostradamus's famous drawings of prophecy. Not a lot of people know that he actually drew prophecies as well, but he has this blank book with this old man that's staring at the viewer, and right above it, guess what he drew? The apex dome with the hole in it, and the frilly clouds represented by ribbons and stuff like that. You see that? Let me zoom out so you can see all of it. Check this out. You see all that? When you start to understand things symbolically, and you can understand the symbolism and learn hieroglyphics and ancient picture form of the words, like the letter D. Remember I showed you it was a triangle? It only became a triangle over time. At first, they drew the top of the dome and an inverted dome coming out of it. That's lowercase letter D, right? This is what it started to look like whenever they were etching it into things and they're trying to draw a curve, which is the apex dome coming off of the roof, right? That's the ancient letter D. That's what it looked like in Paleo-Hebrew, or going back into Phoenician and other earlier times. It was more circular, okay? When you're etching it into rock and stuff like that, then you get harder angles. Pretty soon it just turns into a triangle that points downwards. And then if you flip that around, then you get D and stuff. Here's more examples. Proof of the dome. Proof of the shape of the world. The shape of the world reveals it to us, right? You can see the image of Hyperborea right there in the middle. You can see the dipping down of the apex dome. You can see all of the things that are being revealed to us through holograms and fractals that exist as light passes through it. Light is information. This is information. The world is revealing itself to you. Whenever academics tries to explain this, they say stuff that doesn't even make sense. They regurgitate vague generalities and expect you to go, oh yeah, okay. Crystals, it's light passing through crystals in the air. Why the hell would light passing through crystals in the air make that? You know what I mean? If it's passing through crystals or whatever, fine. Maybe it'll make like a shape or one shape, or, you know, just to make everything brighter or whatever. But no, you've got like architectural design and stuff happening right here. The world is showing you the truths, okay? Or showing me. I'm picking up on it, and I'm trying to pick up on it. Here it is again, Atlas, doing the Atlas pose. This is the beam separating at the top, right? This is the world tree. In the Anglo-Saxon world, that's how they drew the world tree, okay? I'll show you that. It's called Irminsul. Here's Atlas again. Sometimes they show Atlas holding up the moon, which is appropriate. That's the apex dome. Here it is again, Atlas doing his own pose, and what's on the apex dome? The constellations, the stars. That's where they're created. That's where they come from. That's where they're made. That's the origin, right? There it is again. We went over that one. Ancient Babylon, Sumeria, right? Mesopotamia. They drew the same exact concepts. Here we have it again. The little squatter man who is holding up the apex dome, the depressurization point, and then there's wings that come off of that, which are those clouds and stuff, or simply his arms personified above himself. But then we also have like these streams of water that are rising up from either side, bowing outward towards the top. You see that? I'm going to get into that. I'm going to explain to you why there's always two things on the side of this iconic image. Witnesses, two of them. Okay? Altogether, there are three major lights at the top of the world. That's the middle one. Here it is again. We talked about that because I recognize the broccoli trees. This is just, depictions of Atlas. Atlas does not hold up the Earth. Okay, they'll show you him holding up the Earth or whatever. That's in an inversion, right? Every time we go through these polarity shifts, it shifts the polarity of us as well, or some of us, okay? So we get everything backwards. We see everything inverted and upside down, which is why people think that, we live during the season of Satan right now. I just noticed this coffee cup actually says Eve on it right there. That's interesting. The name Eve, that's not her name, actually. I mean, there's no her. It's just that there's positive and negative on either side of Mount Meru. Eve is one, Adam is the other, right? Or you could see that this is Adam too, right? But anyways, this is Hawa or Hava. Like you ever hear that song, Hava Nagila? Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila Veishmecha. Hava Neranena. Anyways, that's what that means. Hava. It means life, basically, right? And those are three letters within the name Yahweh or Yahuwah. Now, this is just an artist's concept, a conceptual design of what people saw. This is that same squatter man figure, okay? Pay attention to the beam. Let's break this down. I'm going to teach you exactly what this is, okay? Now, this is the beam of light that comes up out of Mount Meru. It shoots straight up. Around that circular island, there are other plasma volcanoes. When they shoot their beams upwards, right, as that energy rises, it creates a plasma sheath all the way around that magnetic island, okay? It creates a dome that bows inward right at the middle, and all the external plasma meets at a point. The point at where it meets becomes a toroidal donut shape, a ball, and it becomes so small and folds in on itself that it shoots a beam upwards and downwards. You can't see the downwards because it's going into the earth, but there's energy that's going downwards as well, okay? There are two different polarities. This is positive energy, that's negative energy. So our world right now is being flooded with negative energy. Think about that. It'll flip when we'll see the positive energy. Anyways, so there's an invisible mountain. You can't see it right here. This is Mount Meru. This is paradise, okay? It's protected by the Ouroboros, which is this plasma sheath that goes into it. This is a dense plasma-focused device, but it's naturally made and on a very, very large scale, okay? So the legs of the squatter man are always, he's seen as squatting. He's seen as bending his legs down or having legs that bow out because that is the Garden of Eden. That is the plasma sheath that circles the island. All right. This right here, the point where that beam comes up and out of, that plasmoid, it's literally ball lightning, but on a gigantic scale. It is a sun that is created in the earth, in Mount Meru. And when this plasma sheath, because it's pulsating, sometimes it'll grow outward, sometimes it'll fold inward, okay? It's pulsating. When it pulsates inward, that little sun will set. It will go west, downward into the earth or back down into Mount Meru. Whenever this plasma sheath expands, that middle part will go up and that little star will rise from the center of the earth and it will go eastward or upwards. That's the original sun of paradise or the sun at the center of the world. Okay. Like I said, there's different light sources. The apex dome, that's another one. Okay, that's one that everybody around the world saw because that's way high up there in the sky. This is the sun locally within the Hesperides, within the Garden of Eden and stuff like that. And it probably wasn't 24 hours or anything like that. It probably took a very long time for it to go up and down. This is that toroidal field, that donut shape that I showed you earlier, the middle of the Vesica Pisces, right? This is the center point of it. The sides of it sort of light up when you're looking from a side view because that's the densest point from the side view, okay? But this shoots up. And this would be like a type of the apex dome. They've actually drawn the apex dome up here as well. Sometimes, the artists, they draw it in different ways, okay? But this is the entire thing, right? This light spreads out as it gets to the top towards the apex dome. It actually spread out as it goes through the atmosphere, through the fluid that we call atmosphere, right? And then this up here, this is Nibiru. This has the 8-pointed star in it. A part of that 8-pointed star is a reflection of the land below, which is 4 rivers. And there's a circle in the middle because there's a giant lake right there in the middle. And there's going to be a bright spot right there because it's reflecting Mount Meru's beam that's directly underneath it, right? But this will break open, which is represented by this dark point. Now, some people, especially within the electromagnetic universe world, this is where they see that that's space and that's a giant planet and that's Mars and Venus and Jupiter, right? No. Mars and Venus and Jupiter and all the names that we have given to those 7 wandering stars come from this, okay? And the different aspects of this, or sometimes this down here, okay? But this is the original star. This is the Death Star too. So when this opens up, you'll see, the apocalypse comes. Anyways, plasma leaks from the holes when this opens up and depressurizes our atmosphere, and the plasma from the cosmos or whatever will come through and snake on in, just like we've shown you the pictures. And people around the world witnessed this and drew it. They needed to record this. This was the only thing worth recording because it's a huge change in their world. These are recorded in petroglyphs and rock formations or rock drawings, rock carvings and whatnot across the world. And they're the same in every country. They're very similar. I'll say that. So this is not showing you a cyclops. It's not showing you a person or anything. These artists were looking up and they were drawing and recording what they saw, which was a significant change in their world. This is that same plasma squatter man, okay? Sometimes the arms, as seen as such or whatever, sometimes they'll bend upward. Remember, this is plasma. The body will stay where it is. The arms and stuff, it can move depending on the atmosphere because it's in a fluid, right? The wind can change how it blows around and stuff. But this portion up here will not change. Okay, that circle with the dot in the middle, that's the eye of the bull, the heavenly bull, the holy cow. Okay, this is where the Cyclops idea comes from. There is a such thing as cyclopia or whatever as a medical condition, but this is the ultimate Titan Cyclops, the gigantic stick figure plasmoid being, or the Adam Kadmon, the original first man or first humanoid, right, with one eye. Okay, it's drawn in different ways in all these different rock carvings. And this is, for example, this is from a band. And this band, this German band, took their symbol straight from this. And a lot of these musicians in the modern world, all of your movies, they reference this. This is why you love fantasy and sci-fi and fiction and all that stuff. This is why this music appeals to you so much, especially the music that you don't quite understand. You just know it hits home, right? Today's modern music, almost every popular song is a riddle. You don't even know what it's about. You just know you like it, okay? But this is why you like it, because it's telling you the ancient truth of yourself and the world that you live in. Here's another petroglyph. This is like the Pac-Man, okay? So I broke this Pac-Man symbolism down when we were decoding, what was that movie with the robots in the future and there was a war? It was a very recent movie, I forgot. It had that Pratt dude in it. Anyways, let's not get distracted, okay? And also, I have a character that this body that I inhabit, that I live in right now, that my spirit drives around, it has a style to it. You see my backwards hat and the hoodie and my DC shirt and, have sort of a surfer kind of snowboarder, carefree, good vibes kind of attitude or whatever. Don't mistake that for being ignorant or careless or haphazard in research or study or intellect. Don't. You would do well to pay attention to the things that resonate. All right. Anyways, and I like it. It's fun. Okay. I enjoy this particular incarnation. Anyways, so this is another petroglyph. Okay. This is the Pac-Man, or the plasma apocalypse cycle man, opening its big old mouth at the top, because that's just a mouth head, basically. These are the different layers to the apex dome, which is also showing you a reflection of Atlantis. And these are all little balls, little plasma balls, little plasmoids that people will see, and it's eating those pellets, those Pac-Man pellets, okay? This is how it is shown to us within the Thunderbolts Project version of what I'm discussing. This is where a lot of that comes from. I pay them homage, and I'm thankful to Wallace Thornhill and, all the different guys that run you know, like the Thunderbolts Project and the different subsidiaries of, you know, people who look at things through the eyes of the electric universe. But their idea is that there is like these planets that are way out there, actual physical worlds and stuff. I like that idea, but I'll take it a step further and incorporate my cosmology, which is a closed system, which we live under a dome. And you're seeing the dome. This big portion on the outside, that's the apex dome, right? And then you have the lights, just like how we talked about. Now, let's get into this symbolism. We talked a lot about the lights above, the apex dome, what people saw, the luminaries, how they're created, their tracks, and how they move based on, you know, the vortices of light that exist above the apex dome or the ice dome above us, right? But there is geoplasma. There are, like I showed you, the inner Earth sun that rises and then goes back down into the cave where it's born, where it lives, right? Just like the story of Maui. He roped the sun and pulled it into a cave. Explain that. You know what I mean? Now it makes sense. Why do we have this association with pyramids and a freaking beam of light coming up out of the pyramids, shooting directly up into the sky? Because that is real. That happens, okay? The word pyramid is two words. Amid, amidst, amid means inside of, right? And then pyr is just pyre or fire, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It means light. So fire inside, light on the inside. That's why we know that there needs to be light coming out of the pyramid. Okay, a lot of people have guessed and they feel that this is some sort of energetic device. And you're right, it is. But it's not man-made. I mean, there are versions, you know, man just copies what the earth does or what God does, however you want to see it. So yes, there's man-made versions of the pyramid that they build over these places of power, these caves that emit this light, right? But then the earth itself is perfectly capable of pulling itself together in this particular pyramidal shape or square, triangular type shape or whatever, from the very beam itself. And I'll show you examples of how that's done. But first, let's take a look at some of these holy mountain motifs, which is exactly what the fire inside is. The fire in the mountain is the holy mountain motif. Mount Sinai, Rupes Negra, Mount Olympus, you know, Mount Meru, all of the ones that you can think of. These holy mountains are not just mountains that erupt lava or whatnot, right? Which lava, I'll just tell you simply, lava is not what you think. Lava is melted metal mixed with earth. It's not melted earth, okay? Now, here's the holy mountain motif. One, you can see the apex dome directly above it, so you know which mountain this is. This is Mount Meru. It's the mountain under the moon, or the mountain under the, you know, the shadow of the dome above, the shadow mountain, the mountain that's so tall it casts a shadow. It's said as well. You can see the constellations right here above it. You can see all the smoke and stuff that comes out of it. It's not smoke. It's not burning. It's atmospheric depressurization. There's a pressure differential between the inner Earth zephyr, or the pressure release, and the conditions outside. The warm air that's coming up in the Arctic meeting the cold air of the Arctic, giving you fog all the way around this mountain and the whole entire island, actually. All right, now let's take a look at some more motifs of the holy mountain. And I mean the holy one, I mean the holiest of the holy mountains, okay? There's many places of power where this happens around the world. Little tiny fountains of youth, if you will. But this is the fountain of youth. Look at these little people on it. You see that? Right? And then at the top, always in the clouds, it's not a volcano. I mean, this is not a lava volcano. Up here is where God lives, as it's portrayed by the Hebrews and others, right? So you know which mountain this is. This is Mount Meru. The angelic association, all these people just hanging out at the bottom. Why? Because they lived there. This is why people build cities around active volcanoes, right? They didn't just decide, hey, there's an active volcano. I think that's a great place to settle down. Before it was an active volcano that spews out lava and stuff, right? Every other cycle, those are places of power. Those are where your first cities are actually established. And the people wanted to be close to the mountain because they were all little versions of this, the holy mountain at the center of the world, that produces life-giving energy from within, right? And that's why all the noble people were the first ones to settle there, and they claimed that land. Here it is again. Sometimes it's drawn as like pieces of a titan, you know, that break off like Ymir. And at the top, you'll see like oftentimes they'll put lightning and actual electricity, or sometimes just the top of it's on fire or whatever, but it's not exploding. This is not lava. Gabriel, what's up, Gabriel Spark? Cool name. All right, here it is again with the lightning. All these people, you see how they're all walking around the mountain? This is what they do in Mecca. The reason they do that is because they're copying what people will do. They're walking around Mount Meru, okay? Because they're picking up on, they can't help it. It's electromagnetic and it's running right through them. So exactly how you have the Ouroboros that goes around this whole island, the people also make this pilgrimage to the mountain and they walk around it because they get certain effects from doing so. Positive effects, right? And here's the freaking electricity on the mountain. This is not some volcano. It's not Mount Vesuvius or anything. This is the throne of the world, right? And here you can see it's in a valley in this particular, these are just depictions, but it's appropriate that they put it surrounded by this valley or whatever. Because at the Garden of Eden, there's those walls I was talking about. Here it is again with the light, terrestrial beam of light, geoplasma that is erupting up from within the earth as the hollow earth depressurizes. Here it is in ancient times depicted as what is known as Sumeru or Meru, right? Shamaru or Sumeru, or this is where Samaria comes from, right? This is original Sumeria. This is ancient Sumeria, this land. It goes by many different names, okay? But it's called that because of Sumeru, or because of Mount Meru at the center, which is a split mountain that emits a beam. This right here, a lot of people mistakenly think that this is the mountain. This is not the mountain. This is light that comes up out of the mountain as a giant pillar in the four corners or cross sections of paradise at the center of the world, which is the four corners of the earth. Right? And there's the ocean all the way around it. That's just the Arctic Ocean. But yeah, that's the beam of light coming up from Mount Meru. Here it is depicted again. You could see the Septon Trio, right? They're trying to incorporate, you know, these other mountain ranges. They know that they're there. And you can see that it's just a tower that rises straight up out of the earth. The castle at the middle of the world, or the tower, the Tor mountain, right? And the beam rising up, powering everything. It's amazing. Here it is again. So pictures like this might be difficult to understand at first. Let's zoom out. If someone just showed you this, you might not even know what that is. You know what I mean? But now, with the plasma theory, we can have a better understanding. We can take a look at it and go, wait a minute. It's a square. Square represents the four corners of the earth, or the earth itself. So this is earth. This looks like water. That right there is the split mountain. Let's take a look at it. Let's zoom in on it. Yep, that's the split mountain. And then it's all blue, so it kind of blends in together. But this is the mountain. That's the top. That's the peak. That's the other peak right there. And the rest of it is the blue beam that is rising up and separating as it goes higher and higher into the heavens. And as it does that, it creates toroidal instabilities, or plasma instabilities, that create these little multiple donut shapes. Remember how I showed you there's that one main donut shape? Well, over time, you can get multiple ones that create the rungs of Jacob's ladder, okay? And so you see this, people interpret it as these different levels of heaven, or of the heavens. And then it all culminates up there at the top, which is the all-seeing eye, the inverted dome, and the depressurization point. And then, hold on, didn't we have something else? I don't want to get into all that. Anyways, here it is again, Mount Meru again. You can see the light. It looks like a lighthouse, actually. And if you watch movies, the lighthouse symbolism always represents Mount Meru every single time, okay? It's the lighthouse of the earth, basically. There it is right there. And you can even see the plasma up there in the air as the atmosphere is electrically amplified and stuff. Here it is again, another depiction. I like this one simply because they actually show the energy coming up out of it as a blue beam. I believe it's blue because it's ionized oxygen and nitrogen, right? Which refreshes our whole entire atmosphere and gives us the great oxidation event, which allows for gigantism to return to this world. One sec. All right. This is just an artist rendition, a depiction. I have no idea if they knew what they were drawing or, anything. All I know is that this permeates our creative abilities, and people replicate this and draw it over and over and over again. This is from a book. What book was this? Journey to the center of the earth, I believe. They went down into the center of the earth through a volcano up in the north. Here it is again. This is the gathering of all these people. They come together at the holy mountain. Here it is again. You could see all the little jagged peaks. This is appropriate because that mountain, that tower, Mount Meru, like I said, it's got the two main spires that look like a wolf's head howling up at the moon, but it also has other spires that reach up because this is land that's being pulled up by these electromagnetic forces and petrifying in place, okay? So it's actually got jagged portions to it. This is the castle. This is the Disney castle at the center of the world. And this is, you'll see this type all throughout the movies, okay? This is Oz, the Emerald City. There's always this castle, jagged type of thing. It's the mountain. And the people go there, they meet there, they live there. This is the book cover that was done by my buddy Zen Garcia. Shout out. Hope you're doing good, buddy. He gave me a copy of his book and he put this on his book. Right there, Rupus Nigra, the Black Mountain. You can see it looks exactly like Devil's Tower as he's portrayed it. You got the cherubs, right, which are the little sprites and stuff like that, the four rivers, everything, the beam of energy that shoots out and goes up higher into, towards the dome. Now, this is an example on a small scale. You can see this today with these ice crystals or whatever that reflect a type of what is to come. The light that comes, this would be like the star that is born within the mountain, the beam of light that shoots up and then it spreads out as it goes higher and higher into the atmosphere, eventually creating auroras when we're talking about plasma. This is not plasma. This is just from streetlights and stuff. But you can see examples of what the world will look like when the pillars of light appear to be holding up the sky to keep it from falling upon us. Why? Because the sky did fall upon us. In the ancient world, the sky fell. Not all of it, not all of the firmament falls, but portions of it do. I'm adjusting. Sorry, I've been sitting here forever. So anyways, this is the age of light, okay? This is the terrestrial energy geoplasmas that erupt as columns and light pillars the world across. Now, they might not be that close together when the time comes, okay? You might see them more spread out. I believe that you will. But this is shown to us all over the place. We see types, omens of what is to come. This is within Freemasonry called the Age of Light. And that's the date they use on their cornerstones when they make their buildings. It made in the Age of Light, and then they tell you or whatever, right? There it is again. You're going to start seeing these as omens all over the place. Pillars of light, especially blue beams. You see this in the movies as well. These columns, these light pillars that shoot up. Usually blue, bluish green sometimes. Like I said, it depends on the gases, right? Sometimes they show them coming down. That's something that's similar, but it's something else entirely. That's the abomination of desolation. I can tell you exactly what that is, but the one that comes down is deadly, and it's not a geoplasma that comes up, which is life-giving. Here it is again. This is from Indiana Jones, right? You got the black rock, the island, the pillar of light that comes up out of the Ark of the Covenant that goes straight to this apex dome in the sky that has a hole in it right there. Boom. This is at the beginning of like every other movie I've ever watched. This is the age of creativity. This is why they show you this before you get lost in a creative movie or whatever. These are all the little pillars and beams. This is not the sunlight from on the other side of the earth shining beyond it. They show you, and you pay attention, you see it right here, okay? The beams of light come up out of the earth. They're geoplasmas. Here it is from Superman. I can't play this clip because they're very protective of this particular movie, but this is Krypton, okay? All of this is symbolic of our actual real world, okay? Krypton has a dome above it. The dome opens up, there's a beam of light, etc. All the things we've been talking about. Here's like 6 different examples of these sky pillars and sky beams that go up to the apex dome in all these different Marvel movies and Disney movies and stuff. And then, of course, Las Vegas, right? We have the Black Pyramid, which is the black rock that has light inside of it, right? That we know has a blue beam that shoots up out of the very top. That's what that is. It is energy. So all the people that are saying the pyramids are energy and stuff, I agree with you. I totally agree. Okay, they're the man-made pyramids, like the ones at Giza, definitely were built upon cave systems. Wayne Frosty, what's up? Cool name. I like Wayne Frosty. Anyways, so yes, they're types. These man-made pyramids are types of the naturally occurring pyramids that are created by the earth herself. And they put them on top of them to harness that power. They're ancient cathedrals, basically, which are healing places, which allow the nobles who live there and who claimed that land to regenerate their bodies at a cellular level, because that's what this does. This cold plasmas, we're using it now. Okay, so research cold plasmas and cellular regeneration, and you'll see that they're using it on a tiny little scale to electrocute people's faces to take away their wrinkles. Imagine bathing in it, showering, being in a room full of ambient cold plasma that is healing. Yes, exactly. This is shown to you in many different ways and different forms of fiction, our pop culture. We can't help it. It spills out of us. All right. And when we start using, research tools like comparative mythology, then we can start seeing the correlation, the interconnectedness between all things, and why the modern mysteries of places like the secret societies, people like these different secret societies of the Freemasons, Skull and Bones, Illuminati, etc., and so on and so forth. The Order of the Eastern Star, right? The highest, east is up, right? These things all come together, okay? Those people left. That paradise, every other cycle, it's destroyed. It's inundated with water, as we've talked about and discussed, right? Where does that water come from? From the flood. Well, let's suppose that we're looking at a beam, and this is happening all around the world, like we talked about, of ionized oxygen heading all the way up into the highest parts of the heavens, right? Creating layers of ionized oxygen. And then the next cycle around, when the sky opens again, ionized hydrogen smashes through it. What do you suppose might be created? This is an alchemical wedding. It's the ocean is the answer, just so you know, okay? And it creates a huge worldwide flood, in addition to pieces of the actual ice dome breaking off and melting and stuff, right? But all of these things start to make sense when we incorporate plasma, which is basically spirit form, which is basically pure energy localized in streams and points of focus, or consciousness, or awareness, or collections of information, which is literally what knowledge, what consciousness means. Science means with knowledge. Conscience. Here it is again. Blue beam coming up out of the man-made version of these pyramids, the step pyramid style that people saw up there in the heavens, which is the apex dome is more of like a rounded version of that. Okay, like we talked about. This is just, different styles, creative styles. People just know. You have to have a beam coming up out of the pyramid. The pyramid itself is a machine, or a type of machine, right? Something that holds the world's information. This is where the Akashic records are. This is where the world's information is stored in Mimir's well in Norse mythology. And it pours out of us time and time and time again. We know these things. You see how there's blue energy running through the cracks there? Right? It's not just the blue energy that will shoot up in beams, but it'll run through the cracks. And those particular metals and crystals that absorb energy will also absorb these healing energies. And they'll become magic rocks. They'll become magic crystals. Not just because it's, what do you call that when you tell someone a placebo? It's not just a placebo. I think it's magic and therefore I feel empowered. No, fudge that. Real magic, real radioactive materials that you can use to manipulate the physical world and or your very own body until they start to lose all of their, until they go through radioactive decay and then they start to become more dangerous and stuff. But this is shown to you, okay? This is orichalcum of the ancient Atlanteans. This is all of the special magical metals, minerals, the healing bath waters. Why do you think the people in the ancient world built so many healing baths? You know what I mean? That's nasty. Everybody getting together in a swimming pool. I don't want to go to a public swimming pool these days. That's disgusting. These people pee all in that pool. They're nasty. That pool's just got chlorine and chemicals and crap. Those ancient baths are ancient baths because that's first of all, they had minerals, right? That stored this energy because it rushed up through the cave systems that had water too. right? And if those cave systems have electrolytes, like these metals and minerals and stuff, which they do, then they would become healing. They would become healing baths whenever the angels would stir them up, which the angel is the electromagnetic plasma that runs through that cave, right? Now it's all starting to come together. Now it's all starting to make sense to me. I love it. I love it when a plan comes together, to quote the A-Team or Murdoch. Anyways, I'm all getting excited now. I love it. It should make sense. It should all be connected, right? All of these ancient bathhouses, all of these, this is why Wyatt Earp came to Colorado, here where I live, to go up to Steamboat Springs, because there were certain areas that still had residual energy, right? All this plasma, when it retracts, the earth pulls it inwards because it needs to charge. We are in a time of charging. We're not in a time of electromagnetic or energetic release. We live during a time of where the energy is seeping down back into the heart of the earth so that it can charge it. Why? To benefit us once more when it releases it back to us. And we have magic and we have mystery and, you know, wizards and witches and monsters and angels and gods and all that stuff. Okay, those will return to us. But anyways, yeah, all those bathhouses and spas and all that stuff from the ancient Greece and all those other times, they worked at first. But as the energy retracted and all that healing energy started getting lower and lower, then it just became water over time. And the people didn't realize what it was. So they just, out of habit, continued to keep going back to those bathhouses, just believing. Now you have a placebo effect. Just believing, oh, it's the minerals. No, it's not the minerals. It might have a little effect on your body, but not as much as charged minerals. Okay, magic minerals. This is what they're showing you in the movies too, right? This is from the movie Moonfall. This dude's clearly standing inside of an unfinished pyramid, which is Mount Meru, in the blue beam, showering in the blue beam, getting enlightenment, you know, the fountain of youth, etc. This is shown in the movies all the time. We build things like this to remember, right? Memorials and stuff like that. Blue beams that shoot up out of the earth from the necropolis, which is the city of the dead, which is where there's different areas of the earth that attract spirits because it's electromagnetics, okay? Some areas of the earth repel them. So some spirits will go down into the earth, especially during the time whenever the earth is charging and pulling all that energy down into it, into Hades, Sheol, Hell, the underworld, however you want to see it. The necropolis. Other times, it'll repel it and they'll go upwards to the sky. And when you die, you go to heaven, etc. We talked about that one. Here's just another example. You know, the pyramid in the sky, the flying pyramid, etc. The type above that exists below. This is one of my favorite versions of this. Somebody made like a movie and they're just depicting electromagnetic universe discharge. So in their mind, this is some planet that's like shooting a beam downwards, but it's not. This is upwards, and it's creating these little toroidal eddies of energy as it goes up to the apex dome. I really like this one, right? This is also like the caterpillar, you know, in Alice in Wonderland. This is drawn on petroglyphs, and people think that it's like insects, and there's all kinds of things that this is. These are the different Hindu gods with multiple arms and all kinds of other stuff. These are just different depictions. This is the simple version of a plasma discharge, right? So you discharge it from here. If this area below it is magnetic, like a disc, then you'll have a little bowl of plasma at the bottom, which creates the Squatterman legs. Then you have that toroidal field in the middle, right? Which is created, there's an emptiness in the middle, or a meeting place that's called a Z-pinch, right? Which is where the plasma, which creates its own electromagnetic field, and because plasma is repelled by a magnetic force and it creates its own magnetic force, it has the ability to be self-contained. It can create its own little walls to harness its own little spirit or energy, and therefore it can self-sustain. It can be in the form of a ball, which is ball lightning, that you see moving about independently. Or before it becomes ball lightning and it's visible to you, oftentimes it's just an orb of gas, which is why people report seeing floating orbs, and then you can see through it. It's transparent, but it's kind of distorting everything. It's gas. It's on the verge of ionization and becoming ball lightning. And you'll see, oftentimes you'll see it near places of power. Like I saw one that was like this big, and it was right by these electrical lines, and it was going right towards them. It was crazy. Anyways, different depictions of the beam of energy, of the apex dome, right? Of these life-giving energies, of these energetic mighty ones of old, in the forms of these pillars and stuff. Different forms of the rock drawings of the same exact squatter man type image, or stick figure original quintessential light being, basically, is what this is. Different depictions, artist depictions of it. Like I said, keep in mind, sometimes they show you it's coming down, and that does happen. Let me explain that before I get too off track, okay? For the most part, the things I'm referring to are geoplasmas, which shoot up. Those pillars of light, they shoot up. After this next cycle is complete and the Earth is done charging, there will be pillars of light that are life-giving and positive and healthy lights that shoot up to the sky. But right before that happens, our sun, our focal point that you guys call the sun, okay? It's getting brighter. I don't know if you've noticed. We're going through color spectrum shifts in our entire world right now. Everything is getting brighter up there in the heavens and the luminaries. The moon's getting brighter. There are color changes that are happening with the sun. Used to be orange, then it was yellow. Now it is white, or it was white not too long ago. Now it's whitish blue. Take a picture. Go outside during the middle of the day, take a picture with your smartphone. If it's a clear day, I promise you it'll be whitish blue. That's because it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter and more focused and more focused. The light behind it is getting narrower and narrower, which is causing daylight down here on the ground, or daytime, or the length of a day, to shorten and shorten and shorten. It's also speeding up as it goes around to account for that. So pretend like this is the sun, okay? Let's just pretend. I just want to use this as an example, okay? That's what we call the sun today. That light from the sun, what we call daylight, will become so focused it'll be like a laser. It'll start burning the earth, and it will leave. It will transgress its circuit, which is its stopping point in the tropics, specifically this time around the northern tropic. Okay, last time it was the southern tropic. It went too far away and it disappeared. Okay, and that was during the winter solstice up here in the northern hemisphere. But the next time around, the apocalypse comes during one of the future summer solstices. It's a summertime apocalypse. There's a winter one and there's a summer one. During the summer apocalypse, the sun transgresses or transcends or goes beyond its sins, basically. It goes beyond the limitations, the boundaries that are set for it, which is the northern tropics, right? It's supposed to go to the north, to the tropic, stop for 3 days, and then come back, right? That's what it's supposed to do. But the time will come whenever it starts going further north, right? And it'll keep going further north as it spirals in towards the throne of God. As if, and people from far away will see this beam of blue daylight, which is hot daylight, which is burning everything in its path. It is an abomination that causes everything to become desolate. It rids the surface of humanity. People hide from the sun. They can only come out at nighttime, and they will retreat underground. They will go underground. This is why people are starting to paint the roofs blue, by the way. Okay, so blue, well, it reflects blue. Okay, so if the sunlight is blue and it's hot and burning things, right, and you paint your roof blue, it's less likely to be burned by the sun because that's blue light now that's coming from the sun. So it's just reflecting that blue light back. It's not absorbing all that heat. Does that make sense? Anyways, so the sun becomes a deadly laser, basically. It hovers, it goes to the Garden of Eden. It ultimately will destroy anyone that surrounds the camp of the saints up there, all the people that are selfish and trying to claim the Garden of Eden, and there's a huge war, and they all surround the camp of the saints at the North Pole. Fire will come down from the sky and burn all of them to a crisp. But then it'll disappear after that, and it'll be replaced. It will sit in the throne of God, which is Mount Meru, right above it, and people will think that that's God. That must be the blue beam. Oh my God. Let's say that this theory that I have actually becomes popular. People are going to be like, oh, he was right. There's the blue beam. Let's go to it. Ah! And then they all freaking burn. Okay. That's because that's the evil blue beam. That's the project blue beam that brings chaos and destruction. Okay. But there is a good type. There is an evil type from above, and there's a good earthly plasma from below. Okay. When that sun burns there for 3 days, it will disappear. That point of focus, it'll go away, because we will enter into an electromagnetic shift where it will be replaced by the geoplasmas that will erupt from Mount Meru once again and restore paradise and the golden age to this world. So that's what I mean by that. When I talk about, there's two different types. This is the Christ, and that is the Antichrist types, okay? This is just another artist's impression. Like I said, sometimes the apex dome goes through its own little cycles, just like the moon does. That's why the moon goes through these cycles. In the ancient world, they called the cycles of, that Saturn star, the Kronos star, or the apex dome, they called those a shar, right? Shar also means ruler, basically. It means prince, or it means a ruler, or it's the root of Sarah, right? Sarah is like a female version of a prince, a princess. This beam right here represents the princess energy, or Sophia, or positive earth-giving energy. And it goes all the way up to this Shar, or this horned one, this Kronos. Kronos means strong horn, or strong horns, as you see there. This is the holy cow up there in the sky. It's also the bull's eye. So if this is the cow, that's the eye. That's the eye of the cow, or the bull's eye. Here it is again. So this is the plasma sheath. Let's talk about that. So I talked about how there's a protective dome of energy that wraps around the Garden of Eden, right? So if this is just a type, okay? So you see the blue beam that would come up out of Mount Meru, like we talked about, the plasma sheath that comes from the septentrion, right? I've sort of drawn it here where you can see the energy going up from Mount Meru. There's the holy cow. And then you see like a little aurora. I was trying to make the plasma sheath. I just made this, Here it is at the bottom. There's the plasma sheath. Once again, it's a type of from below of what exists above, right? We've got a dome, an apex dome that droops on down in the same exact fashion as this protects the Garden of Eden. Now, here is an actual mechanical device that humans have created called a dense plasma focus device. It might look familiar to you because it's the exact same thing that they use in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Okay, same looking at least, okay? Now, it's kind of sideways, so let me turn it around. That way you can understand the Garden of Eden. Now, there's positive forces and there's negative forces, right? The positive force is in the middle in this particular device. The negative forces are cathodes, and they're all the way around the outside. It doesn't mean good or evil, it just means positive and negative, okay? Now, imagine that these copper pillars are like copper mountains, 7 of them, sometimes 8, right? It depends on how you might interpret things, especially in the book of Revelation. But the energy rises up from inside the earth. Like I said, it's charging right now and it's going to be released. So the energy rises up. They're attracted back down towards the center point, which is the anode, right? From negative to positive. And it creates an umbrella of energy, a dome, a little donut of energy all the way around, which is paradise. Now, if you were to look down, this is actually an X-ray, I think, that they took of this. I don't know if it's an X-ray, but it's a picture they took of this when it's turned on. This is the top-down view. And this is basically you're looking at the Garden of Eden. This is a type on a small scale. Let me zoom out so you can see the whole thing. But these would be little plasma volcanoes. You'd have like, say 4 on each island or 1 on each island or whatever, right? And then they would bow inward and they would create a little mini sky for Eden, okay? Whatever the color was. Here's what it looks like again in practice. So it looks like a little donut shape. So right there would be Mount Meru at the middle and that lake, right? You have all that lake and stuff, right? So that explains why you would expect there to be mountains around the outside. And I'll explain this to you next, okay? Mountains are created by electromagnetics, by plasma, by electricity and stuff too. So these beams of energy, they attract all the mud and muck and debris, earthen debris in the form of like clay and molten metals and stuff like that. They're attracted to these places of power, these lights, okay? Let me show you. I'll just show you. I'll get back to that in a minute, how the mountains are made. Anyways, here's the dense plasma focus device, right? So this would be the walls of Eden all the way around. And this is Mount Meru with its opening right there in the middle with the positive, the plus, the good energy on the inside. This is just a thumbnail I made for an older video that I did called the 7 Mountains. There's a concept within politics even called the 7 Mountains Mandate. That is the septentrion. Not trio as in 3, but trio as in trees. These are the world trees. Okay, these energetic trees shoot up out of their trunks, and they bow inwards towards Mount Meru. They actually bow down to the Lord, or bow down to the Lord of the earth, which is that central light of the world. And these are seen as like the followers and stuff like that too. So this is, you could imagine these are like types. I just like to give people mental pictures of what it looks like. This is from the video game Fortnite. So this is also depicted in fiction, video games, fantasy, commercials, all kinds of stuff too. So they got the same energetic dome, the same beam that goes up to the top of it. This is upside down, but this is also a dense plasma focus device. And this is what it looks like. The beams bow inward and they go, these are like the elders bowing down to the king or whatever. Hold on, let me share this. So this is what it looks like in action. Oops, hold on, I went too many times. There we go. So the energy rises. It starts from within at the bottom. It rises to the top, and then it starts to create this electromagnetic field, right? Which is going to start on the ground. You might want to think about that, okay? This is extremely powerful plasma and electricity. So you don't want to be there when this energy sheath is rising from the earth. I don't think that sounds like it's a good idea, okay? You should be protected as long as you're under it once it's established and it's up above, okay? But that's Mount Meru. As you can see, all those beams meet in the center where they start spiraling and they get tighter and tighter and tighter until they create a little toroidal ball. And then the beams shoot out of the ball, like I talked about, the star. This is, again, a magnified image of what it looks like on a small scale within the laboratory. This is a magnet. That whole circular island at the middle of the world is magnetic. That's why you can't go on regular ships that have iron nails and stuff, because this lodestone island, or magnetic island, probably made of, everything there is magnetic, copper and iron, but especially magnetite, all right? That's why your compasses point in that direction. If your compass is pointing towards that direction, imagine what your ship is going to do if you're out on the North Atlantic Ocean and you get too close. If you have a metallic ship or whatever. This is Shipwreck Island at the top of the world. Because if you don't know and you got metal all in your stuff, this is why you can't bring weapons too. Most weapons are like metallic. Swords and knives and guns and all that stuff. You can't have weapons here. You have to leave them at the door, because there will be a doorman in the form of this angel that guards the way to the tree of life that will take your weapons from you. Just... It's a strong magnetic force. There it is again. As you can see, it's the tree of life, right? Shooting up from the middle and branching out at the top, creating the cosmic wings of the phoenix, the thunderbird, etc. This is the septentrio. This is an alchemical drawing of the 7 mountains that I was just discussing. They show you the inner earth underneath. This is paradise in the middle, right? Which is a valley, which is Hill Valley, and they got beams of light. It is not the sun that is just illuminating everything. These are actual terrestrial geoplasmas that are rising up from within the earth out of these natural pyramids and shooting straight up. They're not shooting towards a focal point or anything. It's just perspective that makes it look like that. So let me zoom out. So it's not they're all meeting it at a focal point. They're all actually going straight up. But if you're far away, the further away they go, they look like they're converging. Okay. And then this is the apex dome. You can see the depressurization clouds all the way around it, which is probably a superfluid. This is the same type of thing. This is actually a poster that I sell, a little mini poster on my website, JayDreamerZ.com. So so far I'm doing pretty good selling little mini posters and stuff. I don't know. For as long as they last, you can grab one if you want. Same alchemical book. We already looked at that. More examples. These are the septentrio again, but they're represented by followers of Jesus. You see these lights? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Frilly blue gases around the depressurization point right there. Here it is again. A lot of symbolism that's happening here, but you can see that they depicted this in the ancient world. All the way up until about 100 years ago, all the way up until about just the modern era, or what we call the modern era. Now, the modern era is a season or a time where it seems like everything is satanic. Everything is inverted. Everything is in opposition to what we feel on the inside and what we resonate with, which is called the truth. It's literally a season of Satan. It is Satan's little season as described in the Bible. It is a time when all that good, life-giving energy that strengthens your spirit, your chakras, your soul, your very mind, your brain, your synapses, and allows for better living, longer living, and healthier living is taken away. And we live during a time of exponentially increasing entropy, which is a lack of energy, a degradation, a breaking down of things, energetically speaking, because energy is what gives us life. So we become consumers in the modern age. We have to eat other things to steal energy from them, which does not come natural to many of us. I don't even like eating that much, unless it's good company. You know, if I'm having a good meal with some good company, that's the only time I really enjoy eating. I think it's weird to stuff things into my body and chew on it and make it into a paste and then put it into a vat of acid inside of me and walk around with excrement. And that, all this stuff is weird to me. When you live under these conditions in the year of light, in the time of light, right, then you don't need to eat, and therefore you don't need to poop, which is why in medieval castles and the Dark Ages and all this stuff, people are realizing, wow, they didn't have bathrooms. It's not because they went outside. Could they eat? Possibly. Okay, and if that happened, then, you know, I'm sure that there was ways to take care of that. But in general, there were times when people did not have to go soil themselves and wipe it up. Like, if anything is a sign that we live during a satanic empire, that's one for me, okay? It's embarrassing to me personally. It's disgusting. I don't even like to talk about it, but God, that's the world we live in. That's going to change. You won't need to sleep either. You notice they don't have like a lot of bedrooms and, you know, places, sleeping places in those same places where they lack toilets and they lack bathrooms. They don't have a lot of gigantic, exquisite sleeping areas. People did not need to sleep, okay? You know, there was places where you could just like sit down or lay down or whatever if you want to. But even within the lore of the elven race, they didn't sleep. They never slept. They meditated if they wanted to like take a moment to focus or whatever, right? But they didn't need to sleep. Sleep is a charging process. And you're sleeping. How long are you charging for? 8 hours a day? Some of you 6, some of you 4, 2, I don't know. Me, my circadian rhythm's thrown off because the earth is in flux right now. But you know what I'm saying, okay? When you live under these conditions, where the atmosphere is electrically amplified, then you change what you consider reality and what is normal in this world, the accepted world as we see it, and as our perceptions are forced by the academic institutions of this world, right? So when these beams show up, right, the world around you will be flooded with fresh oxygen. It will have less pressure crushing in on you from every side. And this allows for gigantism. So the world around you looks like it's growing, especially in nature. Insects and plants will be the first ones to grow. You guys live in areas where after it rains, it seems like the plants outside just grew 6 inches, like the next day. Yeah, well, imagine when you change other conditions of our world, how quickly the plants can grow. Vines will start growing so quickly that you will better stay away from them because they will be the devil's snare, just like in Harry Potter. They just want to wrap around stuff. It's not like the vines and stuff want to kill you, but they can kill you if you're not careful. You know what I mean? You're going to be tiny. Your children, however, once, you know, if you're a survivor and you live to this point that I'm talking about, if you live to the post-apocalyptic world, your children will start growing bigger and bigger and bigger. If you've already gone through puberty, then you're most likely to remain very small in that world, which starts to grow large all the way around you. This is just a biblical verse. It says, this calls for a mind of wisdom. The 7 heads of the beast in the book of Revelation are 7 mountains. Use that as a key. Use that as a starting point when you're trying to like decode all the symbolism in the book of Revelation. This is talking about physical location on earth. Every other cycle, it's evil. Every other cycle after that, it's good. Okay? Evil versus good. Atlas holding his pillars. Now, like I said, there's 3 main lights. There's one central beam of light that shoots up from Rupus Nigra, from Mount Meru. But there are also what I call the anode island and the cathode island, or the anode and cathode plasma volcanoes, which create these 11, these 2 pillars, right? The 11 or the one pillar on one side, the one pillar on the other side. In the ancient Hebrew and the ancient Phoenician, these pillars were outdoor markers or boundaries, and the way you say that is chet, or het, or chet, if you want to pronounce it phonetically in English, because it's written C-H-E-T, right? It's equal to an 8 as a number and another 8 as a number. When you go past 88, then you enter into the Garden of Eden, because you're going into the middle of the ones. You got 1, 0, which is the garden, and 1, which is the place where it all begins. It's room 101 of the earth. And we're shown this all the time. You have the central pillar, the central being, and he's flanked by 2 other pillars. Or, I mean, they're drawn in different ways. Sometimes it's staffs, sometimes it's serpents, sometimes it's rods, sometimes it's angels, sometimes it's snakes, sometimes it's dragons or lions, right? These words ultimately mean light, like the word lion means light. Not dragon, but there's the lions, right? Gilgamesh, ancient Egyptian, the 2 pillars on either side. These are the 2 witnesses. People see the 2 witnesses before the arrival of Jesus, okay? And they change the weather, and fire comes out of their mouths and destroys people that get too close or whatever, right? I'm paraphrasing. But these are the 2 witnesses. You will see all these subsequent lights, all the smaller ones, as the energy builds and builds and builds to the largest opening, as that fluid fills up the largest hole in the earth, which is up there at the North Pole. And eventually the king arrives, the light of the world, the main light. But you'll see those 2 witnesses right before you see that main one, that central pillar, okay? 2 beams of light, anode and cathode. And if they are anode or cathode, you'll see them fluctuate, because you'll see one become a lot longer and sometimes even arc over towards the other one and stuff. Here it is again, right? Ancient Sumerian, Babylonian region with the 2 dragons on either side. And you've got like this Atlas pose where he looks like he's holding on to the other 2, right? There's 3 beams of light in the middle, a huge one and 2 lesser ones. On one side, you have a positive lesser one, or a good one. On the other one, you have a negative lesser one, or an evil one. Does this sound familiar? It should, because it's the crucifixion scene. Jesus in the middle path, next to the repentant and the unrepentant, the positive and the negative, the boy and the girl, or however you want to see it. It's just positive and negative, right? And then they always draw the circle in the sky up above with the wings, the winged disc, etc. The 2 witnesses, the 2 lampstands, or lamps, lights. These are literally lights. They're also drawn as trees, right? They're witness to what is about to happen, which is the light of the world erupting from the city of peace, the real city of peace that's actually peaceful. I don't know how people are tricked into thinking that modern Jerusalem is a peaceful city. That's the name. That's what the name means. City of Peace. Does it look like the City of Peace? No. Anyways, this is a map. It's just a fictitious map, but it represents the Middle Earth of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. On one side, originally, right, this is way before this is the creation story of the Lord of the Rings. But on one side, basically he had an anode pillar and a cathode pillar. He had these 2 lights that were trees. Same thing. And then a volcano right there in the middle. Same thing over here. You got the 2 towers, symbolism, and the volcano in the middle. They were called the 2 trees of Valinor. I don't know. I'm into all this kind of stuff. I like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and all that role-playing game stuff. But there's truth to that, right? These are the 2 trees, the silver tree and the golden tree. One represents like the moon, one represents like the sun. And remember, like I said, the apex dome reflects that above. Okay, positive and negative. Oftentimes in the ancient works of art, you'll see those 3 mountains. They're depicted as 3 pillars, 3 mountains right next to each other. One on the left, one on the right. Joachim, Boaz, and then the ladder in the middle, the central path. If you're looking at, the symbolism of Freemasons, on this ancient map of Iceland, is that what that is? Septentrion, you can see up there, the Arctic pole. But then you see this, Insula Magneta, which means magnetic island, an entire magnetic island. This is the reason why there were pole worshippers, rod worshippers, not male sexual organ part worshippers. Okay, let's all grow up a tiny bit and try really hard to see beyond that. I'm begging you, because it's like it hurts my soul to hear people say stuff like that. Okay, I get it. That's on your mind, but it's not on mine. That's not what any of them look like. They worshipped geoplasmas that erupted from the earth, creating light pillars, not the penis of Osiris as a being, as a physical man, or anything of the sort. So stop. Okay, just please do yourself a favor. Stop saying Uranus. Stop talking about phallic worship. Okay? You're off. I'm sorry, but you're way off, dude. Anyways, so this is why they worshipped the pole, the pillar. They have the maypole, the tree worship, the Christmas tree, all that type of stuff, okay? Has to do with the geoplasmas that erupt from the earth into light pillars, sky pillars during the age of light. Anything else has just been inverted, turned upside down, and become base because of the season of Satan that we live in. So here it is again, you know, all across the world, right? They worshipped these types of holy groves or pillars of these trees of the earth, light pillars. Now, once those trees of light, those pillars of light, columns of light retracted and the earth is recharging, the people still went to these places where they would worship. And oftentimes there were trees growing. You know, there's a lot of life that's growing in these areas. So they would associate the groves and the trees and whatever natural things that were already there with the ancient past, as they forgot about the ancient past. And they developed into what is called today tradition, which is just habit. It's habitual actions without remembering the origin of those actions or the why behind the action, right? More of them, just more of these pillars and stuff, right? Lots of ancient pillars. Everyone knows the Jed in ancient Egypt. It's where you get Jedi from, which is, you know, Star Wars. The people who have power, there are the Jedi, they're the pillars. They have light pillars inside of you as well. It's your chakra, your spine, and all that stuff. This is the Jed. This is a god in ancient Egypt that looks like an electrical pole. That's because it is, okay? This is the beam of energy, or a beam of energy, that shoots up and creates these toroidal instabilities as it goes up. That's all it is. People saw it as a god, right? Which is an L, or something of strength. Speaking of Egyptian gods, what's up, Pharaoh? Welcome to my channel. Remember I was showing you the sprites at the beginning? I accidentally slipped in a picture of sprites. This is what they look like. These are sprites up in the sky, right? They flash right now. You can catch them. They usually are just real quick. They'll just flash a split second. But when the sky is electromagnetically amplified and you remove all this pressure, these things are going to hang out and be seen all over the place. What does this look like to you? Don't you think people might look up in the sky if you see something like that and it doesn't go away? And you might see cone-headed light beings carrying staffs and thunderbolts and having crowns with horns sticking out of them and wearing robes and things of this nature. I do. You know, I mean, I'm just using my imagination, but damn, it doesn't take that much. I can see eyes, mouth, you know what I mean? People will see this. They're seeing it now. It's just that in the time to come, the conditions will be just right to sustain these images in the heavens. And people will draw them. They'll look up. They'll see the robed angels, the light beings above, wearing their long dresses or whatever, right? They have long cone heads, and they have like wings that go upwards from their backs and wings that cover their feet. These are the covering cherubs or whatever. All different kinds. And you could look at them. Sometimes people might look at them and see the face of a dragon or a bull, right? Or maybe birds. Maybe Wilson from freaking that Tom Hanks movie. I don't know. But birds, right? Wings and stuff. There's the pillar, and there's the two dots, like I pointed out earlier on the Squatter Man picture. Here's definitely a bird. I mean, that's all I can see. Or that one Muppet, that's like the bald eagle Muppet on Sesame Street or whatever that is, the Muppets. But it's a bird. I'm joking around, but that's this is plasma in the sky in the shape of a bird, a thunderbird. It's a thunderbird because it's lightning basically, and it rips open the atmosphere and creates sound. Here are the Anunnaki with their crowns that they wear. You know how like they show the Anunnaki and like the stronger ones have more horns? That's stupid. If they're freaking alien beings, they're not going to have a class system based on how many horns are sticking out of their hat. You know what I mean? Come on. I mean, I like it. It's creative, but this makes more sense. The more powerful of these electromagnetic forces are going to have more beams that are coming up out of them, or more horns on their hats or whatnot, right? These are also the Skeksis and the, what's the other ones called in the Dark Crystal? Skeksis and the priests, prophets? I forgot what they're called. The nomads. You know what I mean? The good version of the Skeksis. When they come together, they look exactly like that. That's what they are. The Dark Crystal is showing you the truth. Now, let's talk about the formation of these mountains. I think this might be the last point. This is the last round, I'll say. We still have a bit more to go, so I hope that you're not too overwhelmed. If you are, feel free to go back and watch this video in parts. If you feel like other people might benefit and you want to share it out with people, sweet. You know, timestamp the parts that you're interested in. Let them know what you learned from it. But in this picture, you will see this person is electromagnetically charged or electrically charged. Okay, it's static electricity. They hold their fingers directly above some sand. The sand lifts up. It defies gravity. It lifts up into the sky, or it goes up all by itself. So this is the Earth. This is on a very small scale. I'm showing you a small scale so that you can better understand what happens on the large scale. You see that? The little grains are lifting up. They're attracted to, there's positive and there's negative happening here, right? The body has, I can't remember which is which. Let's say the body is negative. No, let's say it's positive. Let's say the body's full of positive energy and the sand is full of negative energy. Well, it wants to connect. It's attracted to the body. So it's attracted to the charge. So the negative energy that's in the sand will rise up, taking the actual sand with it as it goes up to the sky to meet these heavenly fingers. Okay. Now, this is what it looks like when it's not fingers, but when it's equipment. Let me zoom in on this. So this is an electromagnetic plate just hovering above sand. And all it is electricity. The sand reaches up, and this sand has a little bit of water in it. So it's slightly damp sand. So what happens is whenever the sand will lift up, it will touch the source of the electromagnetic power that it's attracted to, and it coagulates. It comes together and it solidifies. The electricity actually gets rid of all of the water that's inside of it, and it becomes dry and hard. It densifies, it solidifies, and we get mesas, right? A lot of people would say giant trees and stuff. Well, this is very similar and related to the giant trees of old, okay? But they're not actual trees. There were giant trees, sequoias, redwoods, and types like that, okay? But these are mountains that are created through electromagnetics in the sky. Whenever those dragons come down, OTW Live and his viewers just joined. Shut up. I didn't even see it. That just said something in my chat. Who's that? Well, hey, welcome. I don't even know who that is, but OTW Live, welcome to you and all of your viewers. The chat's doing weird stuff. Like, this other channel had a game in the chat. I don't have a game in my chat. But anyways, I'm just going to continue rolling since you guys joined us. You're looking at an electromagnetic plate. You're looking at the Earth jumping up into the sky, petrifying, and then cutting off flat at the top. These are your ancient giant trees, the petrified versions. I know there's different theories, and that's fine, and I love all of them. People talk about the mountains melting and things of that nature, but this is where the Earth shot up because those arms of Grandmother Spider reached down from the cosmos, and there's positive and negative forces that are attracted to each other. So the liquefied Earth, and it will be liquefied through worldwide earthquakes where the water will rise up. And so the surface is going to become swampy. That liquefied section of Earth, very clay-like, will rise up. It'll gather up together. All the mud will gather together and lift until it connects. Once that charge connects, then the top part will be the densest part of this mountain, if I'm correct. And if you don't believe me, go look. And they're all over the world, okay? Large ones, small ones. The top often is charred. The top is often the most solid portion of that rock. But when you get down into the other sections of it, it's less dense. You can actually break it away with your fingers and stuff. And then it helps to explain why it's all just falling debris off to the sides over here, right? So you can see the different places where it's zapped. Bzz, bzz, as that plasma danced on the surface of the world. That also helps to explain these mushroom-looking rocks, which sometimes they might be actually petrified mushrooms, but in other cases, this looks like liquid, doesn't it? Doesn't all the rock formations here look like it was just flash frozen in place mud? Because it was, right? So this was all a muddy area, shaken up and everything. Those little plasma fingers of different sizes and strengths and powers would dance over these areas and it would pull them up. And right where it hits, it flattens out. That was the connection point, right where it hits up there, right? So take a look at that one. And some of these I'll actually show you. You can see where it's dense. Sometimes they create things that we see through pareidolia, like, oh, that's an elephant, poor guy, right? I don't believe this is an elephant. I believe this is an electrical arc, where the mud shot up and then went right back down and it solidified and it petrified in place. I'm not discounting that there are things like mud fossils and petrified biological life forms. There are. Okay, the gigantic redwoods and the petrified national forest and stuff is clear evidence of that. But this stuff right here, anybody and children can look at this and see movement. Right? This was once liquid form. It was freely moving and then it solidified suddenly and froze in time and in place. This is not the earth just moving over time as it crunches together through, fault lines or whatever, right? And another thing to explain, like these gigantic megaliths and stuff, if the atmosphere depressurizes, then like I said, Archimedes' principle dictates that there will be an equal increase in buoyancy. So when there's an increase in buoyancy, the world across, and you are real dense and you have real dense muscles in a world that is no longer dense, all of the offspring that are born into that world, they're not going to be as dense as you are. So your muscles and stuff, you're basically a superhero. You'll be able to move things that weigh a lot less, like these things. And a lot of these things weren't even solid at first. Like I said, they were liquid form. They were clay form. And so they were easily malleable. You could shape them and stuff, and then they would dry out over time. As the pressure increased in our atmosphere, things would become more and more dense and become rock and stone and things like that, right? A lot of these rocks actually were created up in the atmosphere as some of these globs of mud and clay and debris and stuff floated up also because of that atmospheric depressurization. Causes some things to float, right? They lose their weight momentarily. They float up into the sky. This is the rapture and stuff too. And when they float up into the sky as a giant glob, right? Sometimes life forms got sucked into those too. So you'll see like sea life, like a lot of the mud and stuff is going to come from the ocean. A lot of sea life is found in rocks, spherical rocks. And they're created up there in the sky. So you'll have crabs and stuff that are already in the sand and the mud. Some of that sand and mud lifts up into the sky where there's powerful electromagnetic charges that rush through it, petrify it, turn it into a boulder or a stone or a rock or whatever. And then it doesn't get sucked all the way out and it eventually gets tossed back down to the earth. There's channels on YouTube, Mont Fossils. I don't know if you guys know that one. I highly recommend that one if you want actual examples of this. He just goes around in New Zealand, picks up random rocks on the beach, cracks them open, and there's crabs. There's petrified animals and stuff in these rocks. But these are sky boulders. They're created up there in the heavens, right? And this is also remnants of the old world. And people went in this. Like I said, it wasn't always dense and wasn't always stone and rock and stuff. It was muddy. It was clay form. And everything was less dense because the atmosphere depressurized. Pressure is equivalent to density. Pretty close to it last time I checked. So if you have low pressure, you have low density. If you have high pressure, you have high density, right? The more pressure we have in the atmosphere, the more dense rocks are going to become, or clay, or whatever it is, right? So people easily hollowed out for themselves protected little areas to survive when there was a time of monsters and electrical areas all around the world. And you can see where they were struck, right? You know, some people think they were struck by weapons, or there's different tales of this, but I think I'm leaning towards plasma actually striking these. So Petra right here, or Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail, basically. This is easily carved out. People easily created these little areas of protection where the earth opened up. And that's what this is. The earth opened up here. And people just carved this out. People are like, oh, you can't imagine what it would take. Well, yeah, I can imagine what it would take if the world was less dense. If this was all clay and then it densified and hardened over time into stone and rock and stuff, then it makes more sense to me that, you know, it didn't take all of this advanced machinery and stuff like that, right? But they constantly did this. They dug into the earth and they created for themselves little safe places, little safe havens to live in the rock. And this echoes Jesus's words that said that a wise man builds upon the rock, right? Especially in regards to the apocalypse. When the apocalypse comes, you have liquefaction, you have worldwide earthquakes, you have the depressurization of the atmosphere. There's a lot of stuff happening. You need something solid to live in, okay? Not a mobile home, okay? Not something that is not firmly attached to a foundation, which is bedrock, which is also the Flintstones, which is why the Flintstones have modern technology in a prehistoric world, because they're symbolizing through cartoons the truth and the reality that modern day people in the past have and will survive the apocalypse, which throws them into a stone age, but they take with them the mentality of the world they just left, which is the modern world, right? And they survived because they lived in bedrock, right? All right, here's more examples of where they cut into the clay, which turned into rock over time. This is in Egypt, same type of deal. This is in the Middle East area, same type of deal. And this also helps you to understand these strange, geography anomalies, right? These strange earth anomalies, like the wave patterns, right? It looks like it's frozen in time. It looks like it was moving and it became frozen in time. Modern day academics will tell you the opposite. Oh, this took thousands and millions of years to be shaped and carved by the wind. I see the opposite. I see that this was created very quickly as water was rushing through or plasmas came down, and we're going through a creation/destruction event. Here's that one I wanted to show you, that mushroom rock. Look at the top. Remember how I said that the point of the electrical current happens at the very top. That's why it's flat up there at the top. And then it gets less dense as it goes down. Do you see that? It's burnt. That's not from modern day lightning or anything like that. I mean, could be. There's always anomalies and exceptions. And there's also, this is hollowed out. This is where your Smurfs come from. The truth in the Smurfs, the mushroom houses and stuff like that is where this comes from. Okay? Because they look like mushrooms. But the top part is charcoal. It's burnt off. It's totally burnt, because there was cosmic thunderbolts of the god that came down and struck that right there. This is the densest part of the structure. And then as that electricity flows through it, it dissipates. And it gets less and less dense as it goes down, crumbling away. Here's another one. Some of these are pretty magnificent, right? Some of these also, keep in mind, may have like fallen down from the sky as giant balls of clay and just stuck wherever they happen to land, possibly. Here's more mushroom rocks. I mean, look at it. I see movement in this. I think it froze. There we go. You see that? It looks like it's reaching up from the earth. And then it's like it's holding on to this. What is that? You know what I mean? That can't be easily explained away by wind and rain over millions of years. This is something of substance. There's more to this than just it's just the land, and that's just how it was shaped by water. No way. This is something reaching up and like holding on to something else at the top. You know what I mean? Or maybe something came down as this was reaching up. I don't know. Jerry Cahill. What's up, Jerry? Welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. Good to see you. Here's more evidence of the earth moving about. And these jagged points indicate electricity to me, right? That these are electrical currents that the earth is following suit. And then petrifies. You see that? See how tiny the little human is right there? I don't know if you guys have heard of the black layer, but there's a black layer of basically charcoal across the earth. And that's where all the stuff that was burnt during the last apocalyptic cycle, or one of the prior apocalyptic cycles, came down as all that ash and stuff would land after the world was burning. And it would create this dark line. If you dig down deep enough, almost everywhere there's this dark line. But these are all geographic proofs of the world revealing these apocalyptic cycles to us and the electromagnetic nature of the world that we live in. Like these right here, people are like, how did they do that in solid rock? It was obviously not always solid rock. There was a time whenever this rock was less dense and it was clay, right? Now, I want you to pay special attention to this guy. So we're going to move on to building structures and Gothic styles and spires and domes, okay? So this guy right here is showing you an example. He has an electrical generator right next to him. He's going to hold up this little knob. It's a metallic knob, which will represent a dome, okay? Now, we'll see what happens. Oh, I don't have it. My bad. Well, I'll tell you what happens, okay? So in that example, he holds the dome next to his electromagnetic generator thing, and he gets shocked because dome objects, metallic dome objects, attract electricity. So you'll have more lightning strikes and stuff, okay? But spires and needles, swords and rods that are conductive material, they actually dissipate the negative charge that's around them by shooting the positive charge out of it. So that's what lightning rods are for. That brings us to the era whenever the atmosphere was electrically charged and people had to adapt to the electrical charge that's ambient in the air around them. They actually wore Faraday cage clothing. They wore special clothing to protect their explorers from electrical charge, from dying, from getting shocked by the gods and petrified and turned into rock themselves. These are the knights. These are samurai. These were not worn to go into battle during war. Maybe there's anomalies and exceptions as people forgot, as the energy dissipated and then there was no longer a need for knights or anything. Then it just became a show and tell. They became the mascots for nobility. And they showed them off and they had sport and things of that nature. And maybe they did send some of them into war or whatever, but I guarantee you don't want to be dressed like that in the middle of a battle of 1,000 people. You're going to lose, okay? These people were protecting themselves and they even dressed their horses up like this, right? And you'll even see that they put little lightning rods on the front of their horses' foreheads. You see that? That's because they were going so fast that the friction against the electrically amplified air would zap them, which is the same reason why motorcycle riders used to wear leather and have little metal studs or spikes and stuff, for the exact same reason. It's practical. It's helpful. It's useful. This is also why they carry lances, to act as lightning rods so that their troop doesn't get shocked, so that they dissipate. They throw up a lot of positive energy from that area, and dissipate all the electrical buildup in the sky above them, hoping not to get shocked as they're moving from place to place. They also did this with their carriages, lining their carriages with gold, putting little knobs and spires on the carriages. But they didn't put their, I mean, listen, they weren't protecting the horse from war. You could just cut its legs easily, okay? Just super easily cut the legs. That's it. And that thing will just be done. They were protecting it from dragons. That's what these guys did. They went to go look for caves that had dragons. Why? Because those dragons were electromagnetic buildup that created precious substances like gold, right? There's the dragon's lair where the plasma buildup was. And that plasma changes metals into other metals by adding or taking away electrons. These types of helmets and stuff, they're what do they call it? Cumbersome. They're heavy. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps and I had to just wear like a Kevlar helmet. Jeez, man. I thought to myself, if I'm really at war, I'm taking this off. Like, I'll risk getting shot in the head. I mean, they can shoot me in the face or anywhere else. Like, that's just a tradition that comes from putting metal on our heads in the form of a mohawk, which acts the exact same as a spike, right? Why did people wear these things when they went to war? Why did people have spikes shooting out of their metallic helmets? Not because they're going to headbutt somebody during a war, but because this was lightning fashion. This was electromagnetic fashion and protection from the electromagnetic elements that were ambient in the air and abundant in the air at different times. Now, once that electromagnetic charge started to dissipate as the earth pulled it inward and, ever inward, people kept wearing it. They're not going to just get rid of all of it or whatever, but they just got used to it. And then they forgot why they have spikes on their helmets and, you know, why they carry around spears and stuff. There's no way these dudes were just spearing each other in war. You know what I mean? Like, that's not practical. Maybe if a horse is coming, I know they invent, you know, they'll find uses for these things. But in general, you want all your troops to walk around with these metallic points because it's little lightning rods that dissipate the negative electrical charge from above. Could they still get hit? Yes. Which is why the lightning rod has a ground attached to it so that if it's hit, it will redirect the charge. But it's not to attract lightning. It's actually to dissipate the charge above it and to prevent lightning. Now, that's the same exact reason why the architecture of the times looked like this. It's the same exact reason why you have all these little spiky deals all over these houses of God, which are houses of power, which are places that house power or contain power, right? And because it's such a powerful place, you don't want to risk one of those electromagnetic thunderbolts of the gods coming in and just destroying and obliterating your sacred and holy site where you go to get re-energized, regenerated, you know, have your brain stimulated, and you have power. These are castles of power, like Castle Grayskull. Same thing in He-Man. But you see all these little spikes on here? Same thing. This is why it was built like this, so that it didn't catch on fire, which I understand that that's the story they'll tell you for demolishing all these, is they all caught on fire or whatever, which I don't believe. But that's the reason why you have this Gothic architectural style. Gothic means godlike. It is related to the gods of old during a time whenever there were dragons flying through the air and plasma filaments that people could get electrocuted by and they could strike their buildings. That's also why they put these dream catchers in the form of circuit boards on the sides. This was to redirect the flow of the energy, to manipulate it, to keep the people inside of this particular healing center safe, right? And to keep it structurally sound and intact. And also, you could use that if you could redirect it and put it into underground capacitors and stuff, right? Which you'll know there's an underground capacitor because you'll always have like a long rectangular lake of water somewhere in the area, a dome on one side and a tower on the other side, or a spike. But this is why we have the architecture reflecting this. Not because it's just beautiful. It's not beautiful. I don't know why that's beautiful. It's artistic or whatever, but it's interesting. It's nice. It's lovely. I could see the beauty in it, but man, it makes way more sense to me that people spent time and money and energy for things that were practical above and beyond their beauty or any perceived beauty thereof. They were practical. These were practical. Okay? These were put in major city centers to keep them safe, not because this looked like a male body part of any kind. Same thing with these. These are the steeples. Ask anybody ask any church why they have a steeple and they won't know. It's a tradition now. They've lost touch with the roots. They've lost touch with the origin, which I think is super funny. But it's also cool because it's an opportunity to maybe, you know, share a little knowledge with people that think that they have all of it. Here's more of them. Steeples across the world, spires, towers, often bell towers. They'll put a bell in a lot of these because the bell will actually ring if there's too much electrical activity in the air, right? It'll start to vibrate the bell. So you'll hear a humming from the bell. You don't need like an actual thing to hit it or anything. That bell shape will start to hum. It'll make a sound. And you can also ring the bell to respond and create your own little waves in the air, which are going to respond to the electromagnetic field. This is how they fought the giants. They used these bells. But this is interesting. You can look this up. It's 1700s lightning rod fashion in France, in Paris. They specifically sold parasols, umbrellas, hats, all kinds of things that had little lightning rods on them. Not because the people really wanted to get hit by lightning, because they didn't. But they could have, because there was more energy in the atmosphere at the time, which is one of the reasons why they built things like the Eiffel Tower and other things. Here's some examples. I mean, you can find these pictures on the internet. This woman has actual ground hanging off of her hat right there. Do you see that? So this is what I'm talking about, right? This is the rod. The rod shoots positive energy up, which mixes with the negative buildup above, and it goes away. Okay, so it's not such a strong negative charge, which forms lightning eventually. If it does hit, then it's going to go through the metal parts of the umbrella, and it's going to travel down this ground. So the ground is the part that people associate with the rod, but they're not the same thing. The ground is there just in case. This is a grounding wire, basically. It goes all the way to the ground. That's why it's called the ground. So that the electricity won't touch him. It'll just follow that little path and go down to the ground. Same thing with this woman and her hat, right? There's probably some kind of spike or something at the top. This woman's got one. You can see that there's grounding wires that come down out of the hats here, and they go all the way dragging on the ground. These women have these parasols, huge ones. They're carrying them for the exact same reason that those ancient troops carried their long lances and their spears and things of that nature. And you can see them in the lightning. You know what I mean? Oh, hold on. You can't even see that. Check this out. So if you zoom out, you can see they're in a lightning storm, right? This is not AI. This is not a modern drawing or anything. This is an ancient drawing from, like, they got these from newspapers or magazines or something like that from the times, okay? Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the color spectrum shift that I mentioned. All right, our Earth, the whole world is going through a color spectrum shift, right? And mostly, I mean the color we get from the lights, which I call luminaries, the sun, the moon, the stars, right? Those lights, when they first appeared, were more red tone. They cast a red light. The sun that we know it is used to be much bigger, and it used to cast more of a diffuse light, and it was red in color. So everything in the atmosphere outside was red in color, right? Now, I'm not even going all the way back. That's just back. That's why ancient Japan, that's why they have the red sun and all that. It's not the sun setting sun. It's the sun at midday. But then over time, like I said, the focal point gets smaller and more narrow. So it gets hotter. As the light gets hotter, it changes color, and it goes from red to orange, to yellow, to white, to blue. So you just look up at the sun, you ask yourself what color it is, and if it does follow suit, and it is getting hotter and hotter, you know what's coming next. This also leads to the shortening of days. Okay, so the sunlight gets narrower and narrower. The sun itself, the focal point, moves around faster and faster as it tightens in its spiral. And it causes our days to get shorter and shorter. You're losing time. Our years are shorter than they used to be. The circuit of the sun is shorter than it used to be. It's quickening. So this is why, and this helps to explain why, people who were younger decades ago, if you look at their pictures, they look older than they really were. So like an 18-year-old 50 years ago looks like he's 28. You know what I mean? There's plenty of videos. I have a video all about that. Younger people a long time ago looked older. That's because their years were longer. Our years are shorter. And this is one of the omens of the apocalypse that we should look out for, right? That's why I'm 45. I don't know if you guys could have guessed that. I hope not, but I'm not really 45. It's just that I've gone through 45 cycles of a quickening luminary. You know what I mean? Time is shortening. All right, the length of days is shortening. Anyways, as that happens, the color spectrum also follows suit. All right, now we live during a bright white light where it reveals all the rainbow colors. The rainbow colors, as far as omens go, that's the last of the colors, is all of them together. In the beginning, it's dark. After it's dark, there is one color, only one color that emerges. After that, it gives rise to more and more and more colors until eventually you have all of them together, an opalescent, pearlescent rainbow color that's prevalent in many different aspects of our world and our society and everywhere else. That's the last to be seen before the reset comes. Okay. But my point is, this right here, I want you to check this out. This is similar to what you could see during the quote unquote golden age, whenever our atmosphere depressurizes, and so it creates a fog, it creates a mist. Just like when you're in the cabin of an airplane and it depressurizes, it will make a cloud in the cabin of the airplane, right? So when our Earth depressurizes, or the atmosphere, it will create clouds everywhere. There will be a fog everywhere, which is why they associate fog with the Dark Ages and stuff as well. And monsters and all that stuff. So there will be a fog. Now, in addition, like I said, the oceans will disappear. I don't know if I mentioned that, but the oceans will float up. Everything's going to float up into the sky and be drank or eaten by Kronos, which is the opening in the sky. The oceans themselves are going to rise. They will disappear in mass, right? There's always exceptions and anomalies, so there'll be parts that remain or come back down or whatever, but most of them will disappear, okay? There's a lot of salt. There's a lot of sodium in the water. That sodium's, those electrical conduits, those electrical filaments that I was referring to that petrified those mountains and stuff, they also run through the ocean water. And through electrolysis, they remove the sodium from the ocean water above. And you will have a sodium vapor canopy. Now remember, there's different gases and different elements that are heavier or lighter than one another. So it's not like you're going to be down here breathing in sodium or anything. You would probably die, right? Those things layer out and the lighter things rise up, the heavier things come down. And then down here, when we have wind, it mixes together, which gives us what we call air, which is homogenized gases or mixtures of gases. So under a sodium vapor canopy, right? You have all these lights, you have all this electricity that's running through this sodium vapor up there that creates a vapor canopy for our world. And this is the color that those lights are. We have those today. They're called sodium vapor lamps. This is a sodium vapor lamp. That is not what is that fire? That's fire. Okay, so this right here is a sodium vapor lamp. They create a monotone color. So if our world has a sodium vapor canopy or something that is like it, it's going to be the same thing, but on a larger scale, which means you'll see monochrome. Monochrome means one color. That means there won't be any colors because when you don't have anything to compare it to, you can't name it. It's just black and white, basically. It might as well just be black and white, okay? When everything is orange or a shade of orange, then you're just seeing in shades of light and dark. That's it. You don't even know what orange is, okay? But look at the fire. This is a lamp. This is actual fire. That's what fire looks like under those conditions. So now think about the spirits, the stories of demons and spirits and dark spirits and things of that nature, shadowy spirits that can hurt people. That's fire in the old world under sodium vapor lamp conditions. Here it is again. This is from the Action Lab, I think. I just made a little GIF of his experiment, but he's got some gases that he's lighting and you can see it turns black. The fire turns black, right? So you change the conditions of the world and you'll change suddenly what you consider to be possible. Now, take this into consideration. On a large scale, let's imagine this represents our atmosphere when we go through our color spectrum shift. When it first starts, look at the first color, it's purple. You see that? That's due to the argon or the gases, the first gases that ignite whenever these gases are being released from inside the Earth. The gas that ignites first will create a purple flash, but on a very large scale, that'll last years and years and years. And under a sodium vapor canopy, you now have a purple fog, a purple mist everywhere. And that's the first color. So the nobility, that's why they wear purple and stuff, because they're trying to symbolically tell you that they hearken back to the beginning, that their people are from the beginning. They made it. They're survivors of the apocalypse. They're victorious. Okay? Now, you'll notice, though, after those gases ionize and they burn off or whatever, that it doesn't stay purple. This is like our atmosphere. You have to imagine. It starts to turn orange and then immediately goes into like this bloody red color. That's the color of the sky as it was described in the Anglo-Saxon chronicles during the Dark Ages. They called it a bloody red velkin, which means firmament, which means the sky itself, right? So this is the color that we go through. And then that blood red color, I think that actually eases into more of the orange color. Is that what's next? Let me see what my next one here is. So there it is, the purple flash. And then it'll go into a very deep red color. And then after this, it should turn into more of a golden color. Yeah, there it is right there. So this is our sky. Remember how I was showing you those Dark Age images and the sky is gold? That's because the sky was gold. It's pretty simple. It's the golden age for a reason, because the freaking everything's gold. And it affects the colors of everything else, okay? So if you change the color of the sun right now to like purple, it's going to change the color of everything else to resemble that, okay? You're not going to have the same colors you used to have. And this helps to explain why people say that the color blue didn't used to exist. The color blue is one of the last ones to show up on that color spectrum as the lights change. Okay, so you're right. Blue didn't used to exist a long time ago. You might have, anomalies and exceptions like the plasma that comes up from below the earth or whatever, but it was very rare, right? Blue wasn't from snails or any of that story that they try to tell you. It's easy to make blue. You get something red and something blue, you get some water on them, you mix them together and you get purple. You know what I mean? Or they're talking about purple. That's something else entirely. That's it. That's all I got for today. I covered a lot of stuff. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you got something of value from it, something that you that might contribute to your path. If you want more, you can check out my channel. The different playlists that I have here are pretty interesting and similar in content. You can go to my website, JayDreamerZ.com. Like I said, I'm currently working on adding more pages to it. But there's a whole section about the plasma apocalypse. There's a whole section on our ancient Oblivion. I just spent a few weeks adding a bunch of secret things to my website, which they're secrets. I'm not going to tell you about them, but they're fun little secrets for people to discover, right? And I'll leave that to you guys to share the secrets that you do discover on my website. There's other things too. Some portions are for members. So if you want, you can do the 24-hour free cram session and just check it all out for free for 24 hours and look at all the members only access, like my esoteric library of over 10,000 PDFs and ancient documents, or go to the members area and, post something on the members wall, whatever you want. Free 24 hours. And there's also other just pages that don't require a membership, which you can check out too. All right, cool. I'm going to take off. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
But something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier on me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Find so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake I'll try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Far too many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Time to wake up, time to wake up.